Introduction. Our time here on the earth is but a brief journey, or as I like to say, a short chapter in a very long book, the purpose of which is soul growth. We choose our course of study before we are born. This curriculum includes our family and the multitude of circumstances we encounter in each of our incarnations. It is then up to us to deal with these as we wind our way through the maze of life's challenges. The ultimate source of guidance is always our own higher self, what I refer to as the maxi-me. Some of us are more in touch with this than others. All of the answers ultimately lie within, but sometimes we need a little help in finding them. That help might come from a friend, mentor, family member, or professional. Or perhaps it will come from a book such as this, which will offer you a new way of looking at some of your life challenges, transcending a victim consciousness, and figure out how to arrange the stumbling blocks in life to become stepping stones into a new reality. That is the purpose of these simple ideas. Let's start with a little fairy tale to put things in perspective. A galactic fairy tale. A long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there were all of these little light beings just hanging out enjoying life in that joyful and timeless dimension. And then one day a very large, magnificent angel came to them. He had a very serious look on his face. He was looking for volunteers for a very important cosmic mission. We have this small but very special planet out at the edge of the galaxy called Gaia. It is quite unique, like a beautiful garden, and it is teeming with hundreds of thousands of different life forms. It has been something of an experimental station in the galaxy, and it has a most interesting humanoid life form that incorporates the very highest and lowest frequencies known in the cosmos. It is, in fact, the very epitome of dualism. On the one hand, it is an incredibly beautiful life form, and is capable of carrying the highest frequencies of love, light and joy known throughout the whole universe. On the other hand, it is capable of carrying the densest and darkest frequencies the cosmos has ever experienced. Frequencies that the rest of creation evolved beyond eons ago. Here is the current situation. Within the domain of time, this planet goes through periodic cosmic cycles. It is now coming to the end of two major cycles, a 2,000-year-long age of Pisces and the 25,000-year-long cosmic year in its journey around the central sun of the Milky Way galaxy. With the completion of this cycle, many things are coming to an end, and many things are about to begin. But most importantly, the planet is experiencing an infusion of light that is dramatically increasing its frequency. As during any major time of transition, there will be a certain amount of turbulence. Some of this will be geological and environmental, for Gaia herself is a living planet and is also evolving. But much of it also involves the hominoid species that dominates the planet. This will not be a particularly easy time for the species, especially for those who are sleeping and those who are vibrating at the lowest frequencies. As the frequency changes, it will create insecurity that in turn will create fear. The first era of evolution on this planet was the physical era, and the key word was survival. The second era, which is now ending, was the mental era, and the key word was logic. The third era, which is now beginning, is the era of the heart, and the key word is love. This is the highest frequency. Those who currently hold the reign of power on the planet are of the old order of the physical and mental. To the extent that they can make a graceful transition to a heart-centered and divinely guided life, it will be an easy transition. To the extent that they are unable to do this, they will experience much turmoil. So this is the current situation of Gaia. The reason I am here is to seek volunteers who would be willing to incarnate in humanoid form on the planet at this time to help make this an easy and smooth transition. We have sent prophets and teachers in the past. Very often they were brutally persecuted or killed. In other instances they were set up as gods to be worshipped, and these humanoids built elaborate religions and rituals around them, and used these religions to control each other. They did everything except follow the simple teachings that were offered. So this time we are trying a different approach. No more prophets, saviors, and avatars that they can use to create religions. This time we are sending in thousands, actually hundreds of thousands, of ordinary light beings with only two assignments. 1. Stay in your heart. Regardless of what happens, stay in your heart. 2. Remember who you are, why you are here, and what this is all about. Now that seems easy enough, right? Unfortunately, no. As I have said, duality has reached its peak on this planet. This species has perfected the illusion of good and evil. The greatest challenge you will experience is to remember who you really are, why you are here, and what this is really all about. When you remember, you will be able to stay in your heart, regardless of external events. So how will you know when you are forgetting? It is easy. Watch your judgments. The moment you notice that you are in a place of judgment, you will know that you have forgotten who you really are, why you are here, and what this is really all about. That will be your signal. Now here is the challenge. Life on this planet will require a great deal of discernment, wise evaluation of what is true, what is appropriate, and what is for the highest good, both for yourself and for the planet. In many ways, discernment is similar to judgment. However, you will know when you are in judgment and when you have moved out of your heart, when you are in a place of blame. We know how challenging that this planet can be. We know how very real the illusions on this planet appear to be. We understand the incredible density of this dimension and the pressure you will face. But if you survive this mission, and it is a voluntary one, you will evolve at hyper speed. We also should say that we know that some of you who go to this planet as starseeds will never germinate, never awaken to the remembrance of who you really are. Some of you will awaken and begin to shine, only to be choked down by the opinions and prevailing thought forms around you. Others will awaken and remain awake, and your light will become a source of inspiration and remembrance for many. You will incarnate all over the planet, in every culture, every race, every country, and every religion. But you will be different. You will never quite fit in. As you awaken, you will realize that your true family isn't those of your own race, culture, religion, county, or even your biological family. It is your cosmic family, those who have come as you have come, on assignment to assist in ways large and small in the current transition. As you pursue this mission, there are only 3 things to remember: who you really are, why you are here, and what this is really all about. You can do this by continually dwelling in the temple of divine presence, your heart, where this remembrance takes place and from which you are called to serve the world. So, are you all ready? Good. Oh, and by the way, there are a couple of other minor things I should mention. Because of the density, you can't operate in that dimension without a spacesuit. This is a biological suit that actually changes over time. There are many things we could tell you about this, but our orientation time is short, so I think you can just jump in and experience it. You should be forewarned, however. There will be a danger that if you forget who you really are, you may think you are your spacesuit instead of the fact that it is simply your vehicle in that dimension. Once there, you will notice that there are an infinite variety of spacesuits and a great deal of attention given to these. However, in spite of the infinite variety, because this is a planet of duality, they all fall into 2 basic categories called genders. Again, we really don't have time to go into this now, but you will find your relationship with your own spacesuit to be most instructive and interesting. The other little thing is this. In order to operate in that dimension, you will also receive a microchip called a personality. This is like an identity imprint that, along with your spacesuit, will essentially make you different from everyone else. This will allow you to participate in the hologram there, something they call consensus reality. Once again, there will be a real danger that you will become so engrossed in the holographic personality dramas that you will forget who you really are and actually think that you are your personality. I know it sounds rather unbelievable right now, but once you get there, again, there is so much more we could tell you by way of orientation, but we think you can learn the rest experientially on site. The only thing that is important is to remember who you really are, why you are here, and what this is really all about. If you can do that, everything else will work out fine. But take note, so few really do remember this, they stand out as different, and others call them enlightened or awakened, and similar terms. Strange, isn't it? Well, good luck and bon voyage. The big question. Anthony Robbins says that our lives are determined by our questions. For me, the big question has always been, why are we here? What is this all about? Are we here just to experience the joys and pain of childhood? the challenges of puberty and our teen years, school, endless school, followed by the fun and fiction of relationships, family, kids, mortgage, jobs, debt, old age and death. Is life just a bouncing between ecstasy and agony? It took me about 50 years to figure this one out, or at least to come to some conclusions that made sense and gave meaning to the whole comedy or tragedy drama of human existence. It began with what I started learning in the early 1980s, when I created the Human Potential Institute, a clinical hypnosis practice in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. In the course of using hypnosis to find the source of a client's concern in some event or situation in their childhood, I would occasionally do regressions. Needless to say, it came as a big surprise when individuals would sometimes regress back to a supposed past life, especially when they did not believe in reincarnation. At the time, I had no special belief about the subject, as it was not a part of my Christian upbringing. But as it began to happen on a regular basis, I launched into a lot of reading to get a better understanding of what it could all mean. From personal experience with clients as well as historical research into early Christian teachings, exploring other cultural and religious beliefs, and common sense born from observing nature, I came to see that we don't have to get it all done in one life. Each of our lives is but a very brief chapter in a very long book. If this is true, then what is the plot? Gradually, I came to see that it is really all about soul growth. Imagine the waves of the ocean crashing upon seaside cliffs. The ocean spray is made of 1 million droplets, all of them individual manifestations of the ocean that exist for a moment of time before returning to the ocean. It is the ocean's way of experiencing its individuality in a moment of time and carrying that experience back to its source. Now put that in slow motion. The wave crashes upon the shore and we are each a droplet of the whole, existing for an instant in time and space, experiencing a moment of amnesia and believing in our individuality and our various dramas until we return to the great source, waiting for the next ocean wave. Each time we crash upon the rocks, we give birth to new experiences, and each time we return, we carry that experience back to the great ocean we call God. In other words, we are all aspects of divine presence experiencing itself. At the same time, all of our experience contributes to our own soul growth over many, many lifetimes. It's all just curriculum. All of our experiences in life are just curriculum. Some of it is pleasant, and a great deal of it is unpleasant. But it is all instructive to those who have ears to hear and eyes to see. It has been my experience that our curriculum falls roughly into 4 categories: finance, romance, our bodies, and our egos. You can go searching for a guru in a remote cave in India, or seek out a shaman in the mountains, but in truth, the Creator gave each of us these 4 fundamental teachers. Let's start with money as an example. They say that money can't buy you happiness. This is probably true, but it is equally true that the lack of money can certainly bring you a great deal of pain, stress, and sadness. Anyone who has experienced this understands. From the time you leave home as a child or youth until the time that you lose direct control of your finances as a result of an accident, illness, or old age, you will be dealing with money and learning all that it has to teach you. You will have the opportunity to learn about spending, budgeting, generosity, greed, honesty, integrity, how to manage with too little, and how to manage wisely with too much. Your money and how you handle it will give you an opportunity to learn a great deal about yourself, your values, your goals, your discernment, your self-image. And how you use it will give others a clear snapshot of who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, your beliefs, what you really value in life. Money can become a great mirror for you to take a close look at yourself, seeing what you like about yourself and what you may want to change. And then there are relationships. Our human relationships begin with our parents or early caregivers. I ascribe to the idea that we do in fact choose our parents before we pop in for any given incarnation. They become our initial teachers, not just in terms of information, but also in terms of experience. Our early experience with parents can give us a good hint as to the level of difficulty of the curriculum we have chosen for this incarnation. The more issues you have with your parents, the richer the curriculum and opportunities you have for soul growth. For a moment, step away from the blame game related to what they did or didn't do, and pretend, just pretend, that all of this occurred as a part of the curriculum that you chose. I'm not asking you to believe it. Just pretend, because this will give you a new set of glasses through which you can view the situation and open you to new learnings. As long as we are locked into the blame game and our victim mentality, we limit our vision for seeing the bigger picture. This can also be said about our third piece of curriculum, our bodies. Like money, your body is going to be with you all of your life. You will have to deal with it as a teenager, whether it is facial blemishes, unruly hair, or the dramatic changes of puberty. Your body will be constantly talking to you and seeking your attention in 1,000 different ways. As you get older and wage the battle against weight, sagging, wrinkling, and the gradual breakdown of various functions, your body may demand more and more of your attention. And then there are those who experience illness or accidents in which the body suddenly requires 100% of your attention. But guess what? It is all just curriculum. A great deal of it related to the body is unpleasant but oh so instructive. Ego. I remember a talk by Ram Dass in which he said that we are all in somebody training. A big part of our human training has to do with individuation, coming to see ourselves as individuals distinctly different than others. In this piece of curriculum, the ego becomes our guru. T likes nothing better than to feel special, and it can do it in 1,000 different ways. Sports, academics, trophies, degrees, the biggest house, the most expensive car, the most popular, the most friends, the most bling, the most spiritually enlightened. All of these are egos, way of making you feel special, better, or at least different than others. From the moment we wake up in the morning until the last moment before falling asleep, we are experiencing the curriculum of one or more of these 4 gurus, and most of it unconscious. If we were able to stand back and see our daily dramas from a larger perspective, we would begin to recognize the rich curriculum we have created for ourselves. And if we start seeing the same drama occurring over and over in our lives, with different actors, then this is a clear clue as to the primary issues we need to work on. Is that really true? One of the things that I have noticed is that most of our lives and virtually all of our actions are based on assumptions and not facts. Perhaps this is the reason that so many different people come to such different conclusions about any specific event or situation. Let me give an example. A few years ago, a major storm pounded New York City and the coast of New Jersey. We could consider that a fact inasmuch as it was verifiable by those who experienced it directly and those who learned about it via images in the media. There seemed to be common agreement that it did happen. So, we can consider the storm and its damage to be a fact. This fact, however, spun off a host of assumptions as to the cause of the storm. For example, a TV evangelist might sincerely attribute it to being God's wrath because of the state's approval of gay marriage or something similar. The climatologist would say, unequivocally, that it was the result of global warming, while the conspiracy theorist might lay the blame at the feet of the government or the global elite with their hidden agendas. For each of them, their own understanding of the cause is true. The point is this: each of our interpretations of events, situations, or even the behavior of other people are no more than assumptions based on our paradigm or worldview. Each of us have a set of beliefs defined by our personal experience, religious background, political perspective, ethnic experience, family background, social status, culture, and the era we live in. All of our experiences, both individually and collectively, are viewed through a certain set of colored glasses defined by these filters, and the conclusions drawn may or may not be true. They are simply our interpretation of the facts. Why is this important? It is important because we live our lives and handle our affairs largely based on these assumptions, which may or may not be valid, and our assumption-based actions may lead to devastating results both personally and collectively. Let us consider a couple of examples. Each of us may know of a friend or family member, or perhaps from personal experience, where we have seen playing out in full force the old adage, love is blind. You see, your friend has fallen in love with an individual and suddenly becomes totally blinded to all of the other person's flaws and faults, which you can see clearly. A few years down the road, when the honeymoon is over, and at the end of a bitter divorce, your friend has come to the opposite conclusion. Now the former lover can do no right. Every act, however positive or well-intentioned, is interpreted negatively. In both cases, there is zero objectivity because in the first case, all actions are viewed through the rose-colored glasses of romantic infatuation, while in the second case, all actions are interpreted through the grey mist of disappointment, anger, and perhaps hatred. In neither case are the actual facts considered as to what was said or done. And even something that appeared to be positive to an objective outsider would be attributed to malevolent motives by the offended party. This is dangerous enough on a personal level, and the prisons and cemeteries are filled with the victims of such assumptions, which were based on beliefs rather than facts. At a national and international level, however, these assumptions lead to war, genocide, racism, sexism, starvation, torture, and all of the other symptoms of human dysfunction. History is full of such examples, but perhaps the most recent, in my era, is the USA invasion of Iraq, based on an assumption that this country had weapons of mass destruction. A fact sold to the American public, which later proved to be a false but still contributed to the death of thousands of innocent people and ongoing turmoil in the region. So, whether in your personal relationships or whether any individual or group is trying to sell you a bill of goods or convince you of a certain fact, look at their paradigm, their worldview, their set of beliefs. Learn to separate fact from fantasy, fact from assumption, fact from wishing and hoping. Bottom line, learn to think for yourself. Does it grow corn? I was once asked what inscription I would want for the headstone of my grave. Since cremation is my preferred manner of disposal, I don't anticipate such an inscription. However, if I did, I think it would simply be the question, does it grow corn? As I have indicated before, our lives are defined by our questions. For most people, the first question is it true? While this is a valid question for some things, such as someone trying to sell you a questionable item, there are many things that we cannot know the truth of. For example, I have done many past life regressions through the use of hypnosis. The first question that many people ask, after returning from their inward journey into another life is, was that really a past life? The truth is, in most cases, the facts, such as they are not verifiable. And frankly, I'm not concerned with the truth of it, any more than the truth of this philosophy, as compared to that philosophy. The valid question, for me, is not whether is it true, but does it work, serve, or help a person? In other words, does it grow corn? I heard this saying from one of my Native American elders. The indigenous spiritual path was of necessity a practical one. If your belief system doesn't grow corn, then you don't eat. If you don't eat, then you die. Period. So, in spite of being a dreamer and visionary by nature, I have always been practical in my approach. I like what works, as long as it is in alignment with my basic values. Unfortunately, human beings are more inclined to be governed by their beliefs, assumptions, and emotions, rather than by the practical application of what works. Again, let us consider some examples. When faced with a medical situation, the first inclination is to find a remedy, often prescribed by a professional. If we find that the remedy doesn't work, do we increase the dose, change medications, or venture further afield to consider other alternatives? How often do we stop to ask why we are experiencing the health challenge? What is the real source, physical or otherwise, of the problem? We consider the how, remedy, but seldom the why, source of the problem. The same is true with personal relationships. When we are in conflict with an individual, our brain often takes a vacation, and our response is totally emotional. When we respond emotionally with a certain action, and that action bears no fruit, too often we simply intensify the same response. We double our efforts in how to deal with the situation rather than pausing to consider the why of it. Once we discover the why, then our parameter of possible solutions increases. But this requires the objective, proactive operation of the brain rather than the reactive operation of the emotions. An international example is the ongoing and seemingly endless conflict in the land of Jerusalem between the Jewish and Palestinian people. It seems that the strategy is, if it doesn't work, do more of it. Duh. This approach is based on a few basic ideas. Each party contends that they are right and the others are wrong. Each would rather punish or have revenge on the other rather than find a solution. The ruling belief is that if our approach doesn't work, We will do more of it rather than consider alternatives. This, of course, is not true of all Israelis or Palestinians, but it is the governing principle of those in power on each side. I only use Israel and Palestine as examples that most people are familiar with, but I have noticed that this is the way that virtually all nations and governments operate, not to mention individuals, yes, each of us. We have progressed very little beyond the kindergarten playground in our personal and international relations. I'm not saying that it is either right or wrong, since after all, it is our collective curriculum as a species. However, I have noticed that it doesn't grow corn in terms of creating a peaceful, prosperous, free and just world. So, the next time you contemplate a decision or action, ask yourself, will this grow corn in terms of my ultimate objective? The ultimate objective. And what is the ultimate objective in life? We have considered the ultimate question. Now let's look at the ultimate objective. What is your bottom line? What is it that you really want in life? What does it all boil down to, really? I have found that most people just want to be happy or to experience joy. It is a feeling or an experience. This seems to be the common denominator that unites us all, regardless of where we live, our age, our social status, or any other of the categories that divide us. We all want to feel good. The differences begin to show up with the conditions we consider necessary to experience happiness. For most of us, there are the basics of food, water, shelter, security. The next tier might be personal freedom, love, peace of mind, self-esteem, etc. But beyond these, the conditions become more personal. For some, it is a certain income, a certain kind of house, automobile, lifestyle, travel, a university degree, personal power, fame. The list can go on, ad infinitum. The longer the list of conditions that we base our happiness upon, the further we push it away. This is the reason that sages throughout history taught that simplicity or non-attachment are the foundation of happiness. What I have noticed both with others and myself is that, however fun goals are to set and aspire to, their attainment brings nothing more than a momentary sense of satisfaction, and then we are off in pursuit of the next one. The reason I bring this up is to challenge you to look at all of the things you want in life, the things that you think will make you happy. Trust me, they won't. While I admit that the lack of them can indeed make you sad, having them will not bring lasting happiness. Should we then not pursue our goals? No, I think the pursuit of goals is a great endeavor, and certainly the experiences we have in these pursuits are excellent curriculum. All I'm saying is that we should not burden their attainment with the expectation that they will bring us lasting happiness. A moment of satisfaction, perhaps, but not happiness. So what will bring you authentic happiness? That is the second big question, but one that we must each answer for ourselves. For me, it is compassion, gratitude, and generosity, i.e., giving. But that is according to my own nature. These things bring me core happiness. Mind you, I am a long way from perfecting either of them, but I find their pursuit and periodic attainment make my heart glow and my days fulfilled. The secret of happiness. It is true. I have had a good deal of interesting experience in my 70-plus years. I have read a ton of books. I've fallen on the floor laughing, and I have screamed and sobbed my heart out in pain. I have loved from the depths of my being and experienced both the agony and ecstasy of romance. I have also spent countless hours sitting with others in their own pain, offering what little guidance I had to give. From all of this, I have gleaned perhaps an ounce of wisdom, and if not true wisdom, at least some understanding. The result has been that I have reached a few conclusions that, for the moment, seem to be true and satisfy me. The secret of happiness has always been the holy grail of human pursuit. Perhaps that secret is different for each person. In my younger years, I believed it was the attainment of goals, very often material ones, that would lead to happiness. But as I dutifully attained each of these goals, I realized that they brought only a moment of satisfaction, but no lasting happiness. Finally, I came to realize that my true source of happiness was gratitude and generosity. Regardless of our circumstances in life, we always have the choice of looking at those who have more or those who have less. Regardless of your station in life, there will always be those who have more than you do, more money, more possessions, more fame, more love, and better health. And there will always be those who have less. I found that my happiness largely depends on what I focus my attention on, whether I am in a state of gratitude for what I have or in perpetual angst for what I lack. It is that simple. I have heard it said that studies have shown that pessimists are more realistic, but optimists live longer and happier lives. At this stage in my life, I can say that I am indeed happy. Yes, I still have worldly cares and challenges, but I have found over the years truth in the saying, in every seeming adversity is the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And in spite of any momentary unpleasantness or sense of loss, I have always found a gift, something to be grateful for. And not only this, but the simple habit of gratitude, for even the simplest of things, creates a personal frequency of joy that builds upon itself and is self-perpetuating. Deep appreciation and gratitude have become the cornerstone of my joy. A natural product of that gratitude is generosity. Living in a state of natural gratitude and deep appreciation for all that is, spontaneously opens the heart. As fear, anger, disappointment, and hurt melt in the sunshine of gratitude, the heart smiles and opens to a state of grace and giving. There is a deep desire and joy that comes from giving to others from the bounty of one's own life. Whether it is money, love, possessions, or simply good vibes, and the more one gives in the spirit of grace, the greater the joy and happiness. And since life is a two-way street, and what goes around comes around, that bounty returns in many forms, and usually in greater measure. This is the second cornerstone of my joy. Are you a prisoner of history? Perhaps you have heard the old saying, once burned, twice shy. A large part of human survival has resulted from our ability to learn from our past experience. We naturally try to avoid those situations in the past which have been perceived as a source of pain. This is true both individually and collectively. Let me explain. Perhaps the most common is the disappointed love affair. Very often, when one is deeply disappointed in romance, one shies away from love altogether in an effort to never experience such pain again. The same is often true in other personal relationships. Once we have had a set of negative experiences with particular individuals, we live with the expectation that such experiences may continue into the future, and we adjust our own behavior accordingly, once again in an effort to prevent additional pain. At a social and international level, we see the same mechanism at work. Historical hatreds between ethnic groups, tribes, nations, and religions are carried over from generation to generation, like a genetic disease that is passed on from parents to children with no relief. The world is full of examples of this. The two of which come to mind most readily are the ongoing conflict in Northern Ireland and Israel and Palestine. The parties in each case demonize the other side and perpetuate this poison from generation to generation. When you perceive that the other individual or group has been the source of your pain, then it is quite natural to build internal and external defenses of protection. But in all cases, there is a price to pay, sometimes in the external physical world, and sometimes internally at the frequency level of soul growth. Here is the dilemma. Is it possible to be informed by our personal or collective history without becoming its prisoner? Can our past experience inform our present and influence our future without putting our present and future in lockdown or solitary confinement? And furthermore, is it possible to change? Does our present view of an individual or group account for the possibility that they can or have changed, grown or evolved? And what about ourselves? Have we changed or evolved over the past decade? If so, do we want our friends and families to take this into account? Or are we satisfied that they continue to hold us hostage to their perception of who we were 10 or 20 years ago? And on a larger scale, with conflicts between groups, do we allow for the fact that everyone isn't the same, even if they belong to the same ethnic or religious group? In our effort to protect ourselves, have we imprisoned ourselves in our own beliefs about another individual or group of people? Are we prisoners of our personal or collective history? A prison cell of belief can feel safe, but it is still a prison cell, and we are the only one who holds the key. These are deep questions that we should consider as we look at each of the relationships in our lives and global conflicts. You are going to die. It is true. You are going to die. It may be today, and it may not be for another 80 years, but it is something you can definitely count on. I have done a fair bit of counseling in my time. I often sit with people who are in deep pain from major life challenges. But there are also occasionally those who come to me that are totally caught up in the minutiae of their daily dramas. It is almost as if they earned an academic degree in creating mountains out of molehills. On those rare occasions, I simply look them directly in the eye and say, "You know, you are going to die. I am going to die. Everyone that you know at this moment, all of your friends, all of your family, all of your colleagues and co-workers, everyone you read about in the newspaper, world leaders, celebrities, heroes, all of them will be dead within 100 years. With that in mind, let's take another look at your issues." Such a statement, while abrupt and shocking, brings us back to basics and helps us to put things in perspective. This sojourn on the earth and all of our experience, whether pleasant or problematic, is quite temporary, just a brief moment in time. When we are tempted to get caught up in our daily dramas, it is helpful to pause and remember this, not as a cause for despair, but to offer a perspective that allows us to laugh at ourselves and our inclination to suffer the deadly disease of seriosity. Bottom line, when you get really bogged down with your problems, put them in perspective and lighten up. Mini-me, maxi-me. It is a fact. We are multi-dimensional beings. We exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions. We are more than our bodies, our personalities, our egos, our possessions, or even our beliefs. Those are just our 3D realities, a vehicle for our multidimensional self. Why do I bring this up? It is because our perspective about life and the nature of reality shifts according to our dimensional level of perception. Most of the time, all of us function from the 3D, or what I like to call the mini-me perspective. From this level of perception, we experience our roller coaster of emotions such as anger, hatred, fear, desire, infatuation, and judgment. This isn't wrong or bad. It's the nature of the human animal and our temporary embodiment in this dimension. What most of us do not realize, however, is that we are much more than this. The authentic self, which exists at a higher frequency, is the true occupant of that which we normally identify as self. This is what I call the maxi-me, or what some refer to as the higher self. It is that part of us which sees the big picture, the macrocosm, and has a deeper understanding of our mini-dramas in life. It is that place within where the revered wisdom keepers, sages, gurus, and holy folk of all ages have dwelt most of their time, and which set them apart from their contemporaries. A quick and easy way to reframe any situation or experience in your life is simply to shift your perspective from the mini-me default to your maxi-me. See it through a different set of eyes, a different mindset. Ask yourself, how would divine presence view this? Use any appropriate term that serves you, God, guardian angel, or the guru or avatar of your choice. Such an exercise can give you a fresh understanding of the situation and perhaps offer you a greater range of creative choices in how to deal with it. Sex and death. I grew up at a time and place where sex and death were not topics of polite conversation. In fact, there seemed to be a silent conspiracy that these two topics were verboten. And yet, both were the elephants in the room or the emperor with no clothes that no one dared to acknowledge, much less discuss. But that which isn't faced straightforward becomes a shadow that follows you throughout life, with consequences that you may not anticipate nor desire. So, what is it about sex and death? If you are one of my great-great-great-grandchildren, then by the time you read this, I will have been dead for many years. But trust me, it's no big thing. We are constantly cycling in and out. Life itself is a process of change. As an adult, you are no longer like you were as a child or teenager. Though the essence of consciousness may remain the same, the outer form is constantly evolving. Nothing is static. Death is simply another point of our ongoing growth and receives much more attention than it deserves. Of course, you may lament the fact that people change, but your lamentations change nothing, so why waste your time? The truth is, death, as it is normally perceived, is a grand lie, a deception, an illusion. It is a point of change in the ongoing cycle of life. Yes. But the end-all of existence? Definitely not. We do live in a world of consequences and a world governed by frequencies, and there are frequencies and consequences of our words and actions that can be utterly unpleasant or blissful, but there isn't any physical heaven and hell, except as you make it so. If you are really interested in knowing more about this, there are scores of books available that describe the journey between lives and what you can expect to experience. Or, if your current belief system satisfies you for the time being, stick to it. Sex is the second biggie. First and foremost, it is a natural appetite, which is one of the components that come with the human vehicle you are traveling in this time around. Like the need for food, water, and air, it is neither good nor bad. It simply serves a biological function to perpetuate the species. However, we have, unlike all other species, attached a ton of baggage to sex. We have attached it to love, ownership, domination, religion, and a host of other issues. Unlike breathing, however, which flows naturally and neutrally, we have made certain expressions of our sexuality good and bad, often with dire consequences. Okay, I agree. Sex isn't exactly like breathing. Because it involves reproduction, it can have long-term consequences that any parent, and particularly single parents with full parental responsibility, can attest to. So yes, it is a biological function, but it can also have consequences that an individual may or may not want. For this reason, it does involve some exceptional responsibility for those with reproductive capacity. Sex can also be one of our most profound pieces of curriculum. When attached to the concept of love, it becomes much more than a biological function. In this case, it becomes an emotional expression of the love which two people share, or, in some cases, the love that one person holds for another. In addition to this, nature has created it with the same intensity as hunger, thirst, or the need to breathe, with the added ingredient of intense pleasure. So without real love, or the desire to procreate, it can be enjoyed for the pure pleasure of an endorphin high. And then there is the concept of ownership so prevalent in traditional patriarchal societies. Women belong to men and sex becomes an expression of that ownership, and often domination. In practice, the man is free to have sex with whomever he will, but, in some societies, such freedom can mean death for the woman. Ownership in such societies also extends to the offspring. Family and lineage are the household gods of such societies. How can you know that the children belong to you if your wife isn't faithful? And so sexual expression becomes an integral element in maintaining the patriarchal hierarchy. So here we have 4 different meanings for sex. Procreation, an expression of love, an expression of ownership and/or domination, pure pleasure. Is it any wonder that this has become such a rich piece of curriculum for the human experience? Any one of these alone could offer a lifetime of learning, but when you begin to mix them up and weave them together, it often results in a knotted tangle rather than a beautiful tapestry. It is important to note here that, in spite of the prevalence of patriarchal societies that have prevailed into modern times, there are exceptions. Whereas an unmarried woman might be stoned to death in certain cultures for any expression of romantic love, in the traditional pre-missionary culture of certain islands of Polynesia, such as Tahiti, a woman was not deemed fit for marriage until she had given birth to her first child, from her nocturnal frolics with the village lads. Why? Because the issue was fertility, not virginity. Until she proved that she was fertile, she was not considered wife material. And the children? They belonged to the village. Perhaps this is the origin of the saying, "It takes a village to raise a child." Advice? The only advice I can offer is to be clear of your intent before allowing your hormones to dominate your experience. Are you seeking only pleasure? If so, be honest with yourself and others. Do not lead them to believe that it is an expression of authentic love. If you are primarily seeking love, do not fool yourself into believing that every sexual experience will be just that. There are those who give sex to get love, and there are those who give love to get sex. Be clear before you start as to whether you want to bring children into the world with the lifetime of responsibilities this entails, and then handle things accordingly. Above all, go into any situation which you encounter with your eyes wide open. And whatever the results or consequences, remember that ultimately it's all just curriculum. Chop wood, carry water. The story is told of a novice monk asking his Zen master what he did before he became enlightened. The master answered, "Chopped wood, carried water." He then asked, "Master, and what did you do after you became enlightened?" His answer, "Chopped wood, carried water." This reminds me of one of my favorite sections of the Hua Hu Qing by the ancient Chinese sage Lao Tzu, in which he says, "Do you think you can clear your mind by sitting constantly in silent meditation? This makes your mind narrow, not clear. Integral awareness is fluid and adaptable, present in all places and at all times. That is true meditation. Who can attain clarity and simplicity by avoiding the world? The Tao is clear and simple, and it doesn't avoid the world. Why not simply honor your parents, love your children, help your brothers and sisters, be faithful to your friends, care for your mate with devotion, complete your work cooperatively and joyfully, assume responsibility for problems, practice virtue without first demanding it of others, understand the highest truths yet maintain an ordinary manner? That would be true clarity, true simplicity, true mastery. It is the mundane aspects of life that provide us with the opportunities for soul growth, to experience and express love. On the spiritual journey often, the unseasoned traveler is captivated by the scenery and loses sight of the destination. I remember the abbot of a small Buddhist monastery of Cambodian monks telling me that on the journey to nirvana there are many side paths. As one advances on the journey, one will automatically become clairaudient, clairvoyant, and clairsentient. One might even learn to levitate. However, these are all sirens on the side of the road that can distract one from the destination. So if one is addicted to conventional religion, whatever the brand, one may be captivated by and devoted to the ceremonies, rituals, dogma, scripture, organization, religious objects, or the charisma of a leader. Or if one is on an alternative path, one may be just as devoted to mystical or esoteric notions and objects, crystals, chakras, ideas of ascension, extraterrestrial ceremonies, etc. However helpful these may be to one's personal journey, they are but tools and landmarks on the path, but not the destination. To the extent that they become the sirens at the side of the road, distracting one from the final destination, they ensure many additional lives before reaching the goal of returning to Source. The quickest way to return home isn't with all of the tools and toys, holy books and philosophies, ceremonies, or fluff and flair of the spiritual world. It is to quietly work on one's own inner transformation, largely unseen by others, and to continue chopping wood and carrying water, especially if it is for the tired and weak who cannot chop their own wood and carry their own water. What's the purpose of it all? I've already addressed aspects of this in other sections such as the big question, your ultimate objective, and it's all just curriculum, in which I have indicated that our ultimate purpose on the planet is soul growth, and all of our experiences are simply curriculum to that end. The pursuit of happiness, in whatever form it takes in our lives, is simply the carrot stick to move us forward. But beyond this, what is it all about? What is soul growth? For me, it is the ongoing endeavor to increase or refine my frequency. At a soul level, we are the in-breath and out-breath of Source. On the out-breath, we move further and further away from Source until the intensity of that separation initiates the soul's desire to return and reunite with Source. That vehicle is love, pure and simple. Love is the highest frequency. It is the expressway for returning to Source. Increasing the frequency of love is the fastest path to divine presence. Jesus of Nazareth said it so well, living as he did in a time and with a religion complicated by hundreds of laws, customs and taboos. He said, all of the laws and prophets are summed up in this one law: love God with your heart, mind and soul, and your neighbor as yourself. In Buddhism, the focus is on compassion, which is probably a better term than the much maligned English term love, which has so many different meanings and carries so much baggage. For me, it is simply the deep desire to want the very best for the other person or persons, for them to be happy, healthy, prosperous, and free to pursue their highest and best. It is the basic teaching of most authentic historic spiritual teachers. Treat others the way you wish to be treated. I recall one major turning point in my own life. It was a dream I had in 1985. While most dreams are visual, sometimes emotional and often jumbled, this was a clear voice that came to me saying loud and clear, in the end you will be judged not by the gods in whom you believe, but by the quality of your love. It wasn't the quantity, how much I loved, but the quality, how well I loved. It was the frequency that was important. This was particularly significant to me at that point in my life, because I had been strongly influenced at that time by the Native American spiritual path, the focus of which was respect. Respect for Mother Earth, and respect for all my relations. I had noticed how people often treated others who they supposedly loved, how they said and did things they would not say or do if they truly respected the other person. This was particularly true within families, between spouses, and between adults and children. So when I had the big dream, I had to rethink or reframe my understanding of love. I came to understand that respect and compassion were natural products of authentic love. At this point in my life, I understand that every experience is curriculum for my soul growth, and what soul growth means is the ongoing endeavor to increase the frequency of love in my life, and the bottom line is how I live my life day to day, what I think, what I say, and how I treat others. Have I arrived? I wish. I figure I will spend a few hundred more lifetimes working on this one. But at least I now know what the important thing is, and I am consciously working on it. Organized religion. I remember my first visit to Thailand. I suppose that prior to that visit, I had something of a romantic notion about Buddhism. Growing up immersed in a culture infected with fundamentalist Christianity and having read a bit of the teachings of Buddha, I admit to having had some of the grass is greener on the other side of the fence notion, which people often develop either out of curiosity or dissatisfaction. However, when I saw Buddhism at ground zero in Thailand, I found that it was no different than being Catholic in Rome, Jewish in Jerusalem, Muslim in the Mideast, or Baptist in Georgia, USA. I found, as they say in Spanish, el mismo burro con otra montura, the same donkey with a different saddle. One of the things I came to realize is that human beings, for the most part, need religion, and organized religion, whatever the flavor, is about 95% cultural. I have noticed that people tend to take those customs or issues, which were prevalent at the time and in the place where the religion's founder lived, and enshrine these as divine directives. Most of the laws, rules, and regulations are no more than human customs that were enshrined by the followers who organized the religion around the very basic teachings of the spiritual master. The creator of the universe could care less as to what you wear, what you eat or drink, where or with whom you sleep, or the 1,001 other laws and rules you feel are necessary to appease God. While many of them may be useful, they, as well as the organized religions for which they serve as a foundation, are human creations. Don't get me wrong, this doesn't make them bad. Organized religions, like governments and other human organizations, serve a purpose in society. They often provide vital social services, helping those who are having a hard time. They can provide a moral framework that serves as glue in holding society together, and providing a guide star for socially approved behavior, or even serving a prophetic role with governments. Organized religion may even provide a garden variety kind of spiritual guidance and leadership for the masses who might otherwise have no interest in things beyond food, shelter, and material security. So, it has its purpose. The downside, however, is when it is used, as it often is, to suppress freedom of thought and behavior simply because they go against cultural tradition. I think of those religious sects who shun members who leave the fold and refuse to sit at the same table, or even speak to those who have left, or consider those who, in the name of religion or morality, would kill their own daughter, niece, or other female family member because they dishonored the family and religion by kissing a boy. There is nothing spiritual in this. It is all about control, and the keepers of organized religion do not have a good history when it comes to exercising their power of control over the masses. Too often, they have shared the same bed with oppressive governments and sanctioned unspeakable horrors in the name of God. But we shouldn't throw the baby out with the wash, nor should we condemn all for the behavior of a few. As people are different, so are the organizations they create. Do not believe what the various spiritual teachers or religious leaders tell you. Look at their lives and the products of their religions. As the wise saying goes, judge the tree by its fruit. All of this brings me again to some of my favorite quotations from the Tao Te Ching, written by Lao Tzu, who lived 2,500 years ago in ancient China. Quote, "Do not go about worshipping deities and religious institutions as the source of subtle truth. To do so is to place intermediaries between yourself and the divine and makes yourself a beggar who looks outside for a treasure that is hidden in his own heart. Or again, dualistic thinking is a sickness. Religion is a distortion. Materialism is cruel. Blind spirituality is unreal. Chanting is no more holy than listening to the murmur of a stream. Counting prayer beads no more holy than simply breathing. Religious robes no more spiritual than work clothes. If you wish to attain oneness with the Tao, don't get caught up in spiritual superficialities. Instead, live a quiet and simple life, free of ideas and concepts. Find contentment in the practice of undiscriminating virtue, the only true power, giving to others selflessly and anonymously, radiating light throughout the world and illuminating your own darkness. Your virtue becomes a sanctuary for yourself and all beings. And last of all, there are many partial religions, and then there is the integral way. Partial religions are desperate, clever human inventions. The integral way is a deep expression of the pure, whole, universal mind. Partial religions rely on the hypnotic manipulation of undeveloped minds. The integral way is founded on the free transmission of the plain, natural, immutable truth. It is a total reality, not an occult practice. The integral way eschews conceptual fanaticism, extravagant living, fancy food, and violent music. They spoil the serenity of one's mind and obstruct one's spiritual development. Renouncing what is fashionable and embracing what is plain, honest, and virtuous, the integral way returns you to the subtle essence of life. Adopt its practices and you will become like they are, honest, simple, true, virtuous, whole. You see, in partial pursuits, one's transformation is always partial as well. But in integral self-cultivation, it is possible to achieve a complete metamorphosis, to transcend your emotional and biological limitations and evolve to a higher state of being. End cute. Bottom line? Avail yourself to many perspectives, both spiritual, political, scientific, and otherwise, and then use your left brain logic and your right brain intuition to decide what makes the most sense to you and what works the best for you at this moment in your life. But don't let any individual or any organization, whether religious or political, think for you. Religious and political tyrants thrive on the shoulders of unthinking, uncritical followers. Love, fear, and boogeyman religion. The conventional press is regularly filled with stories describing the violent conflict between religious groups throughout the world. Some of it is obvious as indicated in the headlines above, and some more subtle, but just as real. In most cases, admittedly, there are serious issues of social and economic justice underlying these apparent religious conflicts, such as in Northern Ireland, Israel, and India. The fact remains, however, that our history is full of horrors and atrocities committed in the name of God. Within all religions, including the religion of nationalism, there is the boogeyman factor, which utilizes fear to control and unite its members. There is usually an outside human enemy or group, often another religion or ethnic group, and an inside enemy, usually a demigod. It's easy to see this within the radical elements of Islam, but we can also find it closer to home. Let's look at fundamentalist Christianity in the USA as an example. Until recently, this religion thrived on the boogeyman duo of communism and the devil. Fighting both kept the followers united and the collection plates filled. Battling gays and abortion rights, and more recently Muslims, have replaced the void left with the demise of communism. For those who are not fundamentalist Christians, it is easy to see how far all of this has strayed from the simple teachings of Jesus. Love God with all your heart and your neighbor as yourself. But let's look closer to home, within the New Age community. Where are the boogeymen? Where are our fears? What's feeding the coffers, the Greys, the Trilateral Commission, Earth Changers, fundamentalists, the Illuminati, them, whoever they are, the 1,001 personal devils from relationships to AIDS? Jesus, that rascal master who meditated in metaphor, said, "Resist not evil." He knew that what we resist we most certainly draw to ourselves. Witness, for example, evangelists Jim Bakker and Jimmy Swaggart and their challenges with sex and money. He also said, "You will know a tree by its fruit." A good tree does not bring forth evil fruit, nor does an evil tree bring forth good fruit. Any spiritual path which teaches love and adds to the sum total of love in the universe is aligned with the source whose nature is love. Any supposed spiritual path which teaches fear and division and thrives on boogeymen, regardless of the gods and ascended masters it proclaims, is of human creation and feeds the forces of fear and chaos. In the last scene of Star Wars, as Luke Skywalker, the embodiment of virtue, faces the Emperor of the evil empire and holds his life in balance, the Emperor throws out the final challenge. He challenges Luke to kill him, to see him as the boogeyman and to give in to his fear, anger and hatred. The Emperor knows that if Luke succumbs to this, that the force of darkness which the Emperor represents would prevail even in his death. A curriculist perspective. Recently I was asked what religion I belong to. I responded that I am a curriculist. Okay, I admit, it is a new religion that I just created. Well, not exactly. I did create the name, but not the essence of what it is, which is my way of seeing the world. Okay, let's start at the beginning. This perspective of seeing in the world and our purpose of existence was born out of my creation of the Human Potential Institute in Nashville, Tennessee, in 1980. The primary focus of the HPI was my clinical hypnosis practice. To make a long story short, my practice evolved from an initial focus on clients' conventional physical, psychological and emotional concerns to what might be considered more esoteric topics, including supposed past lives. Many instances began to pop up in trance that were prior to the client's current life. At the time, I did not have any belief about reincarnation, so it sent me on a quest to read and understand more about the concept of reincarnation and ultimately about the purpose of existence and the nature of reality. The result of this quest led me to the understanding that our lives are eternal, and each lifetime is but a very brief chapter in a very long book, and the plot, if you want to follow the metaphor, is soul growth. Here's how it works. Energetically speaking, each of us are an emanation of Prime Creator, individualized in order to experience itself. As such, we go forth, experience individuality in all of its aspects, and then return to Source with all of our experiential knowledge. A good metaphor is the waves of the ocean crashing upon a rocky shore. For just a moment, the wave becomes a million droplets, experiencing individuality before returning to the great ocean. So, as a curriculist, I see every lifetime as new chapter of soul growth, and as individuals, we each have our own curriculum to learn in each lifetime. For 99.99% of humanity, that curriculum is unconscious, and we often spend never-ending lives taking the same courses over and over again until we finally learn what we need to learn. There are hundreds of different courses available and even more experiences and challenges that constitute the homework and tests for those courses. But I have found that they generally fall into four primary categories: our bodies, our egos, our finances, and our relationships. All of our challenges in life, or our learning opportunities, seem to originate from one of these four. So what I learned from working with clients in hypnosis is that prior to being born into the physical 3D, we sit down with our spiritual advisor and look at our past history and upcoming life to assess what we most need to learn. Perhaps we need 6 credits in math. Within that context, we have several different math courses to choose from. Or to be more specific, perhaps we need to learn much more about courage, and therefore we choose experiences in our upcoming life that will give us opportunities to exercise courage. Because of the amnesia that is built into the system, we normally don't remember from life to life the lessons we have chosen. And we definitely don't remember how dense and challenging this dimension is. For this reason, we often sign up for graduate courses which are far beyond our ability to manage. These may be addictions, family and relationship issues, physical challenges, disabilities, financial issues, etc. Some brave souls choose multiple challenges in several of these areas at the same time. For this reason, for example, I do not see a person with such challenges as a failure, sinner, or all of the other negative labels that we put upon them. I simply see them as someone who has chosen some very intense curriculum. Now, all of this is fundamental to understanding my perspective as I look at some of my own curriculum in this lifetime. I came to understand my personal curriculum not from reading or meditation, but from challenging experiences, often repeating the same challenge over and over again until I finally began to get some insight as to what was going on. I often introduce myself as a work in progress. Well, it's mostly progress, but the other day my guidance, which has a great sense of humor, informed me that sometimes it's not progress, and that I'm simply a piece of work. Anyway, as I was saying, at the present time I have come to see several specific pieces of curriculum that I'm dealing with, including the balance between compassion, boundaries and discernment. I believe that we choose the astrological sign we are born under because of the particular lessons that it offers us. For example, my being born under the sign of Pisces, I tend to be very compassionate and idealistic, a dreamer that tends to see the best in people, even when their shadows are apparent to everyone else. My having created a retreat center, which I call a sanctuary, has been the perfect classroom for facing the issue of compassion versus boundaries. I am continually confronted by people who are suffering for various reasons and in need of time apart. Sanctuary. For the most part, this has worked well, but there are those instances where their needs are far beyond our capacity to deal. But the bottom line is that I understand all of this is a part of my curriculum. Falling in love. Ah, yes. Another biggie. This is something that you will likely have to deal with at least once, and perhaps many times in life. It's nature's design, trick, to keep the species going, and much of it is based on myth. Fall in love, get married, and live happily ever after. Oh, if it were only true. But simple observation seems to indicate otherwise. Why is this so? It is because the very foundation of the myth is a lie. We never fall in love with another person. We fall in love with the fantasy of what we want that person to be for us. The truth is, what we call love is in fact infatuation, an intense, passionate attraction to another person that blinds us to everything about that person except their highest and best, whether real or imagined. However, as time passes, and with some experience together, the veil of infatuation which clouds the eyes begins to fade, and you begin to see a real person and not a fantasy. This is commonly referred to as the honeymoon is over, but infatuation plays an important role in the human condition, so I'm not condemning it. I'm only shining a little light on it, so that we can really see what it is and what it isn't. First of all, it plays an important biological role in holding two people's attention long enough for them to, perhaps, learn to love each other and/or potentially propagate the species. Authentic love is a learning process and something that can only be learned once the fantasy has faded and reality has set in. It is only when you see the real person, with all of their imperfections, that you can begin to love them. Until that time, you are simply infatuated with the fantasy you have of them. This is the basis of the term, love is blind. It's also the basis of the common phenomena of the honeymoon is over. It means the two people have woken up to the reality of who each is and what they do and don't have together. Infatuation is emotional-based and temporary, while authentic love includes an emotional element but involves much, much more and is grounded in commitment. It's going to be around even when the going gets rough, as it inevitably will. Unfortunately, because we have been lied to as to the nature of love, when the infatuation fades, we believe that we have fallen out of love, and too often go in search of a new high that infatuation brings. Infatuation is oh so delicious. It is also very deceiving if one isn't clear. Don't get me wrong. I'm not opposed to falling in love or infatuation. It is one of the grandest feelings in the world, and I love it. But at my age, I see it for what it is and isn't, and don't take myself too seriously. One of the things I've noticed in myself is that when I fall in love, I get totally stupid. So one of the commitments I have made to myself is not to make any big decisions while I am under the influence. I've made some pretty stupid mistakes in the past while under the influence of Cupid's spell. Or we could say that I've attracted some very challenging curriculum. When the infatuation fades, as it ultimately will, you have the opportunity to really learn to love the person you are with, in all of their imperfections. No, they will not fulfill all of your hopes, desires, or fantasies. They aren't on the planet to make your dreams come true. And yes, they fart in bed sometimes. It's when you come to this reality that you have the opportunity to learn to love in spite of it all. Learning to love is like learning anything else. It has its curriculum and it is work, and sometimes it's hard. To the extent that you pin your happiness on what another person does or does not do, to the extent that they fulfill or fail to fulfill your needs, to that extent you and your happiness are their prisoner, and you are the only one who has the key. So let us enjoy the infatuation microchip that Mother Nature gave us, but let us not confuse it with authentic love. The preposition oracle. As human beings, we are fond of oracles. We like to know what the future holds. It gives us some sense of control, or at least an opportunity to prepare for what may come. I am quite familiar with the many varieties of oracles, and there is some validity to these. What was once seen as mere superstition can now be better understood through the science of quantum mechanics. Oracles are much like a weather report, basing predictions on patterns not readily observable to the average person. But with all of this, I have found the most reliable oracle for predicting your future is the prepositions you use in interpreting things that happen to you. Let me explain. When something unpleasant happens, do you say or think, "Why did this happen to me?" Or do you say or think, "Why did this happen for me?" Which of these two simple prepositions you use is a reflection of the way you view the world. You are either living in a world in which you are a victim of circumstances and other people's actions, or you are living in a world in which you attract circumstances or events that are rich curriculum for soul growth. The first is a reflection of victim mentality, and your happiness is held hostage to what someone else does or does not do. In the second case, everyone, and especially those who push your buttons, are your most valuable gurus. God in drag, if you will. So you can largely predict your own future by looking at which of these two prepositions serve as the foundation of your thinking. Victim mentality will take you one direction in life that will seldom be a pleasant journey or lead to a happy ending. On the other hand, seeing every person and situation in your life, however unpleasant, as curriculum that you have attracted at some level for your own soul growth will empower you to become a conscious creator of what you do want, rather than a complainer about what you don't want. We learn by contrast. As you have heard, the mountain is only as high as the valley is low. Intense desire for something is often the result of experiencing its opposite. Unpleasant events, circumstances, or individuals help us to get very clear as to what we don't want in our lives, and this clarity helps us to pivot into seeing what we really do want. So those unpleasant experiences, while undeniably uncomfortable, serve a vital purpose in our growth. So instead of playing the victim, blaming others and whining, "Why me?" find the blessing, the hidden gift. Ask yourself why this happened for you. In every seeming adversity. I recall listening to the lecture of a motivational speaker who began his lecture by saying that nothing bad ever happened to him after he turned 40 years old. Since he was obviously at least 60, this caused everyone in the room to sit up and pay attention. What was his secret? Was the thought that was on everyone's mind. He went on to say that, of course, many unpleasant things had occurred over the course of years, as they do in each of our lives. But each time they did, he said, "This is good," and each time he was able to find something of benefit in the event or circumstance. It was simply a mental habit he had developed, which automatically directed his mind in finding the gift in every situation, however unpleasant. It reminds me of a statement that I read many years ago that has become a guide star in my own life. In every seeming adversity is the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Note the word seed. It may only be a very tiny seed, and once found, that seed may need to be carefully nurtured if it is to produce fruit. But too often we are so occupied with the unpleasant smell of the manure of circumstance, and we can't find or don't even think to look for that seed of value. We see the mature as so much crap in our lives instead of realizing that it may be rich fertilizer for our soul growth. You have heard the saying, "Time will tell." I have often found in my own life that events that were incredibly unpleasant at the time of occurrence, viewed from a distance, ended up being some of the richest blessings in my life. When unpleasant things happen, we are prone to premature evaluation or snap judgments as to what is good or bad. While there is no denying that something is pleasant or unpleasant, there is wisdom in reserving judgment as to the good and bad of it. Only time will be able to render final judgment. This reminds me of a favorite Chinese folktale. A Chinese folktale. There is a story of a poor farmer with a son who was his pride and joy, and a white stallion horse that was his most prized possession. One day his white horse ran away, and the villagers came to him and said, "You're such an unlucky man. It is so bad." The farmer answered, "Maybe it's bad, maybe it's good." The next day the stallion returned with 12 wild horses following him. The same villagers returned to tell the farmer how lucky he was. The farmer answered, "Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad." The next day his son broke his leg while attempting to train one of the wild horses, and the villagers said, "This is terrible. You are so unlucky." The farmer said, "Maybe it's bad, maybe it's good." 3 days later the army came to the village and conscripted all the young men in the village except the farmer's son because he had a broken leg. Once more the villagers went on about his good fortune. They said, "You are so lucky not to have your son go off to war." The farmer replied, "Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad." This is a good example of the villagers suffering from premature evaluation. The secret of longevity. As of this writing, I am approaching 79 years old, so perhaps I don't fully qualify for what I'm about to share. I could be out of here tomorrow. We never know the time or day. That said, I will go ahead and venture to share what I consider the secrets of aging well. They are very simple, actually, and generally well known to anyone who wishes to explore the subject. I just read a saying related to the subject which says, "Eat half as much, walk twice as much, laugh 3 times as much." Though simple, this does encapsulate much wisdom. Science has shown that reduced calorie intake does promote longevity, and regular exercise is also a critical factor. We already know that stress is a major factor in aging. Stress lowers the immune system, gives you wrinkles and weakens your internal organs. Attitude and changing the way you see the world and the situations and events in your life and the world at large is one of the best ways to lower stress. A good sense of humor is the best defense against stress and your best asset to aging well. Once you overcome the disease of seriousity, you can look forward to a longer and happier life. Here are a few more. Think young. Don't hang out with old people who are always talking about their aches and pains, their doctor appointments and medications. If you want to age well, you are hanging out with the wrong crowd. Cultivate friendships with young people and begin to see and experience the world through their eyes and experiences. You will be surprised as to how transformative this will be. Eat less and exercise more. These are 2 critical factors that the gurus of aging keep repeating. Personally, I have found that intermittent fasting and walking a few miles each day keep me in good health physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Think positive. It has been said that pessimists may be more realistic, but optimists live longer and happier lives. I certainly believe this, and it has been my personal experience. Every moment of the day you have the choice of seeing the glass half empty or half full. The choice is yours, and your outlook on life, the choice you make, will determine your future. Have a purpose and passion. Do you have a purpose for living? A passion that causes you to wake up each morning, looking forward to a new day? Having this will give you the motivation to do those things that keep you in good health, such as diet and exercise. Most of the people I have known who were in their 90s had a personal passion that excited them and kept them going up until the very end. Be curious. Curiosity propels you forward. You're always curious about what just lies ahead. You're always wanting to learn more. In other words, you are future-oriented. Okay, I know that the gurus tell us to live in the present, in the moment, and there is wisdom in that, but for other reasons. If you want a bright future, you must spend some time there in your mind. Curiosity is what takes you there. It is said that you can determine the point in which you become old as when you start focusing on the past, memories, rather than the future, dreams. Of course, if your goal is to be a Zen master, then the present moment is fine. Just saying. Laugh a lot. Belly laughs are a great antidote to stress and depression, and they are a vaccination against seriousity. They are born from a good sense of humor, and the ability of seeing the funny side of most situations and events in our lives. For some, such as comedians, this comes naturally. For others, it is a skill that must be cultivated, but it is available to anyone who wants to improve their lives by changing their thinking. A sense of humor is the firstborn of positive thinking. Love more. Research has also shown that loving relationships are a key to aging long and well. Whether it is friends, family, or even pets, having love in one's life is a biggie. Adding some hugs to your supplement regimen each day is at least as powerful as the vitamins, minerals, and positive thinking. If you have no other options, stand in front of a mirror several times a day and hug yourself with a big smile, and honor those wrinkles as a roadmap of your life's journey. Hug yourself and celebrate the wisdom you have gained through all of the trials, tribulations, challenges, and joys of your long life. Okay, so there is my recipe for healthy aging. As the sign above my door says, live well, laugh often, love much. Check back with me in 20 years, and if I'm still hanging out here in the 3D, let's see how it all worked out. It just do what it do. It is said that the cornerstone teaching of the Buddha is that desire is the source of all suffering, and yet we as humans are born with desire. The desire to eat, sleep, reproduce, and have freedom and security. On these, we build 1,000 other desires. When these desires are frustrated, then he is correct. It is the source of suffering. Desires give birth to goals, and the pursuit of goals give purpose to life, even when those desires and goals are spiritual, such as enlightenment. So I will not negate desire or goals. It is a part of the equipment we were given when we incarnated for a human experience. I will agree, however, that attachment is the source of all suffering. I am fond of saying that there is only one source to all relationship problems, and that is, you just don't do what you're supposed to do. In other words, your suffering in a relationship is the result of the other person not doing or being what you expect or are attached to. When you accept things as they are and not as you wish, then your suffering dissolves. So, let's examine this more closely. Being a gardener teaches me just about all I need to know about life and spirit. First and foremost, I know that, to be successful, I must work in cooperation with nature and natural cycles. Secondly, I know that I must have desire, goals, and intentions. I must have the desire to plant certain crops and give the attention necessary to all of the activities involved in caring for them. However, once planted and nurtured, I must surrender to nature. If I become attached to a certain outcome, so many bushels per crop or acre, I'm setting myself up for potential disappointment, i.e., suffering. Desire, goals, intentions, and even expectations are not the source of suffering. It is only when you become attached to an outcome that you set yourself up for suffering. The individual event or circumstance is not the source of your suffering. It is your attachment to the person, event, or circumstance being different than what they really are. So how is this accomplished? Letting go of judgment is a good start. The way I see it, there are 3 ways of looking at everything. That's good, that's bad, and that's interesting. The older I get, the more my judgments fade, and everything simply becomes interesting. One of my favorite sayings, straight from the hood, is, "It just do what it do." This is very Zen. It shows both an acknowledgement and an acceptance of the isness of things. It simply is what it is. While I receive a reasonably good score in the Eisner's test in my personal life, I will admit to challenges in taking this approach when it involves social or political issues, which are the basis of massive human suffering. In this area, I'm still a work in progress and have much yet to do. One of my inspirations is the story of the Zen monk who lived in a mountain hermitage on the coast of Japan. There was a village some few miles distant, and one day a young woman of the village found herself pregnant by one of the young fishermen she had been secretly seeing. When the baby was born, the village elders demanded to know who the father was. Not wanting to implicate her secret lover, she told them that the hermit monk on the mountain was the father. The village elders took the baby and with the whole village marched to the mountain hermitage and banged on the door. When the old monk appeared, they thrust the baby into his arms and said, "Here, this is yours, you take care of it," to which he replied, "Ah, so, it is what it is." Several years later, The young woman and the fisherman were married, and after their first child, they began to feel regret for having blamed their first child on the hermit monk. So, swallowing their pride, they went to the village elders and confessed. Thereupon the village elders, followed by all of the villagers, marched again to the mountain hermitage and banged on the door. When the old monk opened the door, standing next to him was a 6-year-old lad dressed in the robes of a novice monk. The village elders apologized profusely for having blamed the old monk and having left the child with him. They then took the child without further discourse and started back to the village. The old monk, standing alone in the doorway, simply said, "Ah, so." He had reached a level of mastery that I may never know for many lifetimes, if at all. But whether authentic or apocryphal, the story offers the ultimate illustration of surrendering to the "it just do what it do." The dog track theory of life. A few years ago, I developed what I call the dog track theory of life. At the time, I was having an in-depth discussion with a friend who was devoted to a certain teacher who insisted that our primary purpose for being on the earth was to experience joy. While I loved the idea, I did not find it consistent with either my personal experience or what I had learned from working with clients in hypnosis. As I thought about this and the powerful appeal of such an idea, I came to realize a few things. The pursuit happiness, joy, is the most fundamental motivator in human existence. The form that takes is as varied as are humans themselves. Beyond the basics of food, shelter, clothing, security and freedom, we have 1,000 different things that we believe will make us happy. Unlike my friend, I believe our purpose on the planet is soul growth, and we attract or create those circumstances that serve as curriculum to this end. All of the things we desire in our pursuit of happiness are simply carrot sticks that propel us forward. This is how I came about developing what I call the dog track theory of life. Now, I must admit that I have never attended a dog race, but I am familiar with the process. The dogs are in their little stalls, the spectators are in the stadium bleachers, and there is a metal rabbit that keeps running just ahead of the dogs as they pursue it around the track. The gun goes off, the gates go up, and the dogs are off and running. The metal rabbit represents the pursuit of happiness in whatever form this may take in an individual's life. Each of us have those goals or desires that we feel will make us happy once they are reached. However, if we are honest with ourselves, we will have to admit that in the past, each time we met one of our goals or fulfilled one of our desires, it gave us only a momentary sense of satisfaction. And then we were off in pursuit of the next goal or desire. None of them really brought us lasting happiness. For this reason, I contend that the real purpose of the metal rabbits in our lives are for inspiring us to action which results in experience. It is the experience that provides the curriculum for our soul growth. Therefore, the pursuit of happiness is the metal rabbit that causes us to have those experiences that contribute to our growth, and this human experience is indeed a school. What if? As I have already indicated in several other sections, I hold to the idea that we are not victims of circumstance. Rather, all of the events and circumstances of our lives we have attracted at some level for our growth. Objectively speaking, this may or may not be true, and you may or may not believe it. But if you do embrace this idea, it definitely changes the way you see the world, and more importantly, it empowers you in a way that few things can. As the saying goes, change your mind, and your world changes. Easier said than done, right? Here is an interesting exercise for those with a good imagination. The next time someone pushes your buttons or says or does something which causes you to react defensively and or feel victimized, simply pretend that it is all just a grand drama with you as the lead actor. Not only are you playing the lead role, but you are also the scriptwriter and director who has hired all of the others to play a part in your drama. The whole purpose of the drama is to awaken you to who you really are. With this perspective, look again at each of the actors, especially those who are playing an adversarial or protagonist role in your drama. Why did you hire them as actors in your drama? Instead of blame, can you honor their perfect performance and come to understand why you have created this drama and what it is teaching you about yourself and the world? Keep in mind that you are pretending for the creative purpose of reframing or looking at the situation from another perspective. A perspective that will empower you, rather than keep you locked in the victim mentality founded on blame for what someone else did or didn't say or do. What has been said or done has been said or done. At this point it just is, and there is little you can do to change the situation. However, how you decide to view it is totally within your own power. It can become either a stumbling stone or a building block for creating the kind of future you want. So the next time something occurs, instead of taking a knee-jerk reaction to attack or complain, expand your freedom of possibilities and ask yourself, what if I really attracted this into my life? Why would I have done that? What purpose could it serve me? If you pause long enough to sit quietly with this question, you may be surprised with the answer you receive. As within, so without. There was a time when I was in my 20s that I thought my mission was to save the world. It was the 1960s and I was not alone. We took it upon ourselves to fight injustice, resist war, and right the wrongs of the world. Looking back now, I don't regret a moment of my own activism, but I do see how arrogant I was, and honestly how stupid as well. At that time I thought that the only way you could change the world was by changing the outer circumstances. However, as I learned more and more history, I began to notice a pattern. It seemed that the idealistic young people throughout history, who brought down tyrants in the name of freedom and justice, more often than not, themselves became dictators who committed atrocities as bad or worse than the ones they replaced. Why was this so? I also had the fortune to visit the land of Jerusalem several times and work with close friends, both Jewish and Palestinian, who were involved in peace work. Very often I saw dedicated individuals come up with dozens of good plans for peace in the region, but nothing ever came of it. Why was this so? These and similar experiences helped me to finally realize that the only authentic and lasting revolution was a revolution in consciousness. All of the horrors of human behavior were fundamentally the reflection of the consciousness of the people. You could have a revolution and change outer circumstances, but until there was a transformation of consciousness, there would be no fundamental change in society, only a temporary superficial veneer, the same old donkey with a different saddle. That marked a shift in the direction of my life, from fighting the system to working to undermine the kind of consciousness that made the system viable. I started understanding the meaning of as within, so without, and then I took it one step further. While I might continue to be involved in external efforts to improve the world, or provide transformational opportunities for others, my first and foremost responsibility was to work on me, not to fix you. All of the wisdom teachers I have studied and respected concur that planetary transformation begins with personal transformation. When you change, your world changes. So instead of feeling a personal responsibility for changing others, I first assume responsibility for my own transformation. This also goes along with the idea of walking your talk, or your actions speak so loud, I can't hear what you're teaching or preaching. Sometimes the greatest teaching we can offer the world is simply modeling in our own behavior the kind of world we envision. In such a case, it isn't even necessary to open our mouth. Facing life's challenges. Each of us, over the course of our lives, have to deal with problems. How successful we are in dealing with them is largely dependent on our approach. For example, I am nearing 80 years old, and I haven't had any problems for at least 30 years. Okay, I have had more than a few challenges, many of which have been very unpleasant, but I made the decision 30 years ago that I would start seeing these situations as challenges or opportunities rather than problems. That change of attitude brought a whole new set of resources to the forefront in dealing with situations. Whether we consider them problems or challenges, the first thing we normally do with such situations is try to find a way to fix or solve them. If something is broken, you fix it. If you have a problem, your first response is to solve it. Many such challenges can be solved or fixed, but there are those that have no solutions. If a loved one is killed in an accident, you can't fix it. So the next approach is trying to understand the why of it. This is where the concept of life curriculum comes in. If we can look at any event or situation in our life as curriculum for soul growth, it takes on a new meaning. The pain may remain, but if we are courageous enough to delve deep into the situation, we may learn valuable things about our world and ourselves. We may not be able to fix the problem, and we may not even be able to understand and give it meaning for our lives. But there is one final question. How can we use it? History and personal biographies are full of stories of crisis in people's lives that were tragically painful and yet transformative. The insurmountable problem marked a turning point in their life that took them from breakdown to breakthrough. It is the old story of taking the lemons that life gives us and making lemonade, or using the stones in our path as building blocks instead of stumbling stones. Is it easy? No way. But it seems the difficulty of the challenge is the very foundation of the transformation. Now, these three approaches, solving, finding meaning, using a problem, are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they can go hand in hand. However, we seldom go on to number 2 and 3 if we can easily solve the problem to begin with. We usually only seek meaning or find a way to use the situation for those problems we cannot solve. Life's challenges provide a rich training ground for using all three approaches as a part of our soul growth curriculum. What is wisdom? One of the things I have noticed, both from my university studies and subsequent experience in life, is that intelligence has very little to do with wisdom. Intelligence has been defined as the ability to learn or understand or to deal with new or trying situations, the ability to apply knowledge to manipulate one's environment or to think abstractly as measured by objective criteria. In such high esteem is intelligence held that we have developed tests to determine and score the intelligence level of an individual. Universities and science particularly are full of some of the most intelligent people on the planet. But one thing puzzles me. Why is it that some of the greatest atrocities of the 20th century were committed by some of the most highly educated and supposedly intelligent people? Consider, for example, Germany, the United Kingdom, the USA, and Japan. I would contend that intelligence has very little to do with wisdom. Wisdom is defined as knowledge gained from experience, whether one's own experience or that of others. It is, from a Native American perspective, an understanding of the effects of our words or actions on the planet or others for 7 generations. Intelligence is important and valuable, but when it is sterile, without the wisdom of the heart and experience, it can lead to disaster, as we have seen in our recent history. The greatest gift you can give to your children is to teach them wisdom. Teach them to consider the potential long-term effects of their words or actions. I remember clearly offering guidance to a young couple who were at war with one another at the end of a bitter divorce. They were totally controlled by their emotions and ego. They were saying things to one another, and often in front of the children, that I could see was creating long-term damage and leaving scars that might never heal. These were 2 intelligent people, but were totally blinded by anger and ego. If they had even an ounce of wisdom and were willing to consider the long-term effect of what they were saying and doing, then they would have resisted the temptation to emotional knee-jerk reactions. Rather, they would look at what they wanted to accomplish and the actions needed to reach their goal. As it was, they were in a state of possession and continued on a path of self-sabotage, which injured not only themselves but their family as well. The greatest gift you can offer your children is the understanding of the implications of their actions. Not that they will be punished for doing or saying certain things, but rather the potential harm that their words and actions can cause, both to themselves and others. It is known as the law of return, or what goes around comes around. Some will understand that the stove is hot and they shouldn't touch it. Others, unfortunately, must learn from the experience of being burned. Wisdom is the understanding that this leads to that. Do not expect to treat others badly without being treated badly in return. That, unfortunately, is human nature. 2 roads. Relationships are one of the biggest challenges that most people face at some point in their life. Sometimes with parents, sometimes with children, sometimes with other family members, co-workers, employers. The list is endless. So often we respond to these challenges in a knee-jerk kind of way, born of ego and based on emotion, without really thinking through our desired outcome. But the truth is, we always have a choice in the way we react, and the choice we make will determine the outcome we experience. In dealing with personal challenges, and especially relationships, I call these 2 options the high road and the low road. I do not speak symbolically here, but literally. The road with the lowest frequency, guided by ego, and the road of the highest frequency, guided by spirit. Each road leads to a different destination. It's not really a matter of good and bad or right and wrong. It's not even about the other person. It's a matter of being very clear idea about your desired destination in life and choosing the road that will take you there. The basic question is, where do you want to end up? Once you have decided that, you can choose the road that will take you there. If I don't consciously choose my destination, then my initial knee-jerk reaction is to take the first road, the road of ego. This is the broad and easy road, and it's the only road that most people know. If I choose to take this road, then I would be very offended at what the other person did and said. My first response would be to retaliate with hurt for hurt. I would see myself as a victim and the other person being totally at fault. I would have a need to be right and the other person to be wrong. I would talk to all my friends and try to get them to be on my side, just to prove to myself that I am right and the other person is wrong. I would need to win and have the other person lose. I would need to feel superior and the other person inferior. I would need to dictate what the other person should do or be according to my own ideas. I would get a certain satisfaction in revenge, wanting the other person to feel the hurt that I feel. The signposts on this road are anger, hatred, mistrust, dishonesty, disrespect, and fear. It is a low road because it carries a very low frequency. It is the road that leads to war, constant battle and never-ending conflict. I have taken this road before, and even when I have won a battle, it didn't bring me peace, joy, or true satisfaction. It left me empty because ultimately it was a dead end. The irony is that I never chose this road consciously because I never really consciously chose the destination I wanted to reach. The second road is much narrower and not so easy. It is the high road and carries the higher frequency of spirit. If you choose this road, then you will see the other person as a parent who sees a child who is throwing a tantrum, a child who is in deep pain, feeling rejected, bewildered, scared, and hurt. You would also see through all of the ego drama into the heart and essence of a beautiful soul who has not discovered its own beauty. If you took the high road, you would assume personal responsibility for co-creating the existing situation, not blaming the other person or yourself, but realizing that you both created the situation by the choices you made. If you took the high road, you would not allow the other person's choices to pull you down to the low road, because you would be the master of your own journey. I would act rather than react. You would have responsibility for nothing but managing your own frequency and your own journey. You would have no need to win, but only to find win-win solutions to common challenges. The signposts on this road are compassion, kindness, generosity, cooperation, respect, trust, honesty, and love. And these are also its destination. The few times I have personally stepped out of my ego pain and taken this road, it has led to bliss. How all of this would play out in a specific situation, I can't predict. It would depend on the individuals involved and the situation. Would I take the high road or the low road now if I were under attack? That I can't really predict either. In one sense, the road one takes isn't really a conscious choice as much as an automatic response, according to one's own frequency. As Jesus said, "You will know a tree by its fruit." We each respond according to our own frequency level. This is why I spend a good deal of time in silence. For me, silence is a good time to work on my own frequency. As much as I might want peace in the world, I have come to realize that I cannot create that for anyone but myself. I can't solve anyone else's problems, take away their hurt, or make them different from what they are. I can only work on myself and hold the intention of love and blessings and know, or at least hope, that at some level it all is in divine order. Predicting the future. Cultures throughout the world and throughout history have had systems of divination for predicting the future. While science scoffs at such stuff and delegates it to the realm of superstition, there is no less interest in it today than there was in ancient times. Why is this so? Is it only a reflection of the human desire to control one's future? Or has it endured because people have found it helpful? And if there are those people or those systems that can predict the future, then what does this say about free will? I have heard it said from many sources that the Earth is a planet of free will. If this is so, then how can the future already be known? I have wrestled with this problem for some time since I hold both positions as valid. I do believe in free will and the ability to choose our future. At the same time, I know it is possible for some people and systems to accurately predict the future. Here is how I have reconciled these two ideas at this point in my life. As the ancient mystics have taught, outside of this dimension there is no time, no past, no future, just now. While this idea feels right, I will admit that I am too dense to wrap my mind around it. I do find it interesting, however, that experiments in quantum physics are now suggesting the same thing, that at the quantum level there isn't past and future, or this before that. Rather, it appears that it's all in the present. What is much more understandable to me is the concept of reading patterns. The best example of this is a weather report. The weather reporter tells us that rain, snow, or sunshine is predicted, and normally gives a percentage of possibilities of this occurring, based on reading and understanding weather patterns. Of course, we know that these predictions don't always come true, but they are valid enough that a whole television station is devoted to just weather prediction. So how does this relate to predicting human behavior? Again, it is based on patterns. While we do have free will, we are very predictable and easily influenced. In fact, the whole multi-billion-dollar advertising industry is built on the fact of how easily we can be influenced and how predictable we are as habitual creatures. In addition to this, when we choose to incarnate on planet Earth, part of the agreement involved accepting a certain set of rules that govern this dimension. For example, even though we have free will, we cannot stand outside, flap our arms up and down and expect to fly. It doesn't work that way. There are certain natural laws that govern this dimension, and we chose some packaging in terms of bodies, family, personality type, and such things as astrological and numerological aspects determined by our time of birth, all of which give us a frame of reference which can either limit or enhance our free will, depending on how conscious we are of the influences. But the greatest inhibitor of free will is our belief system. We are all prisoners of our beliefs. We cannot do or go beyond the limits of our beliefs about ourselves or our world. The warehouse of possibilities. In the study of history, it is always interesting to see the issues that dominated a particular era and culture. Obviously, any period of history features many areas of interest. The things that I speak of as current concerns may be totally foreign to some of my contemporaries, whose lives are built around other interests such as sports. But I have always been the explorer, venturing to the edge of the known world of human consciousness, so I admit that the subjects I speak of are not prime topics of the mainstream. Let me reflect on a couple of these. There is a significant contingent of the US population, thanks to the internet, that is devoted to the notion that we live in a world controlled by conspiracies fostered by a variety of secret entities, such as the shadow government, the global elite, or the Illuminati. I have delved deep into these matters because I feel that it is important to be well informed, whether or not one chooses to embrace a particular belief system. In the case of conspiracies, I do not reject the validity of many of these claims, nor do I embrace all of them. I simply pay attention. What I have learned is this. As mentioned in a previous section, we all wear a set of glasses based on our belief system, and it is through these glasses that we view the world. None of us truly see the world objectively. It is always seen through the eyes of our belief systems, whether religious, political, social, cultural, etc. If you believe in monsters, you will find one in every closet. The same is true with angels. A glass is either half full or half empty, depending on how you see the world. Most of us are familiar with the phenomenon of purchasing a car and then suddenly starting to notice all of the other cars on the road of the same model and color that you never noticed before. They were there all along, but you did not see them because your attention was focused elsewhere, until you bought one yourself. We all live in a warehouse of possibilities. Let me explain. Imagine, if you will, that you are standing in the middle of a huge warehouse. It is pitch dark and you have a flashlight with a powerful beam. Every possible experience in your life is lined up along the wall of this warehouse. In one corner there are monsters that are just waiting to attack you. In another corner is a stack of gold, gems, and jewels representing unbelievable and unlimited wealth. In another corner sits the most exquisite romantic relationship you can imagine. Just waiting. The list is endless. Everything you could possibly imagine, both pleasant and unpleasant, exists in this warehouse as a potential. What you experience, however, is determined by where you point your flashlight or focus your attention. The moment you focus your steady attention on any of these possibilities, they wake up and become an active part of your experience. So the question is, if you really want to experience good health, why are you always talking about your health problems? If you want to have a good relationship with a person, why are you always telling them, yourself and others, about all of their faults? If you want to be prosperous, why are you always acting and talking like a poor person? Or why do you continually reinforce the idea of victimhood by focusing on them and what they are doing? Have you ever noticed the popular game that people play called Ain't It Awful? Here is how it works. One person will mention something that they are doing or talk about one of their personal problems, and before you know it, everyone is in on the game, giving examples of how awful it is, and soon the whole group has spiraled downward into a pit of despair and negativity. It seems that they're getting some morbid satisfaction in sharing gloom. Now that is fine if you are more interested in playing the game rather than improving the situation. But I will be honest, I have seen a lot of people playing the Ain't It Awful game, but I have never seen a group of people sitting around informally and getting high, just discussing how great things are or exploring creative solutions to the world's challenges. If we put a fraction of the energy we invest in complaining about them into really working on implementing solutions, how different the world would be. It all goes back to the old saying, it's better to light a candle, however small, than to curse the darkness. So pay attention to what or where you are shining your light or focusing your attention, because you can be sure that's what you will be experiencing. Decisive moments. Each of us has those moments in our lives that are particularly decisive. We are standing at a crossroads. Before us are two pathways. Which path we choose will put into motion a set of events that will set the course of the rest of our lives. Of course, at the time, we may not realize how decisive the moment really is. But then again, is not every moment and every decision such to some degree? Looking back over my own life, I can see the many decisive moments I had and the decisions that I made and, with hindsight, the consequences of those decisions, how they have affected my own life over the course of the years, and how they have affected the lives of others, of family, friends, and even strangers. We are all children. Our species is still in kindergarten. We cannot see the effects of our decisions even 2 days in advance, much less 2 years, 20 years, 7 generations, or a dozen lifetimes. If I had known at the time how my decisions would set the course of my life, how what I said and did would affect the course of other people's lives, especially those closest to me, there are many things I would have done or decided differently. This is the dubious benefit of age and experience. The wrinkles are exquisite portraits of past experience. But this isn't a litany of regret. The past does not exist except as a thought in those 8 inches between our ears. The past is beneficial only to the extent that the wisdom of experience informs the present and tempers the future. That experience can become our guide or our warden. Too often we allow our past to become our prison. We can never escape the trauma of our past experience. This is stuff of which phobias are made. A traumatic experience creates a template of fear, anger, or prejudice that we automatically and unconsciously overlay on every future experience. And in the process, we gradually become prisoners of the past. We no longer have the freedom to encounter life experiences with joyful, childlike freshness. Every experience carries the weight of 1,000 past experiences with the same person, or someone that person or experience reminds us of. We have become prisoners of the past. We bend low and age rapidly under the weight of our own baggage. The wrinkles tell the story. It's not just about our diet or too much sun or sagging muscles. It's more about our sagging spirit. They can be held at bay for a time. They can be removed for a season and a price, but they will return. Our wrinkles are the calligraphy of our experience, but the story they tell is personal. Is it the story of imprisonment or the story of wisdom? It is the story we are writing each day of our life, including this very moment. But is it the endless loop thinking of a prisoner whose mental world is a tiny cell of experience defined by the past, a sense victimhood and reactive thinking? Or is it the story of wisdom, informed by the past but defined by the freedom of the moment and proactive thinking? My personal world started imploding in 1979. I lost my job. My relationship was on the rocks. My family was coming apart at the seams. I was sinking in a morass of self-pity. My own pain blinded me, not only to the pain of those around me, especially my wife and children, but also to the fact that I was not a victim, and that this nightmare was something originating from within, not from without. I became a prisoner of my own pain, and as the pain grew, my world became smaller and smaller and smaller until it finally brought me to my knees. And that, of course, is where I had to arrive, to rock bottom, before I was able to begin the journey home. It was only when I totally collapsed in surrender on the stone floor of my dungeon that I discovered the key to the lock that let me escape. It was only when I collapsed in exhaustion from the terrifying pursuit of the nightmare's monster that the monster bent down and gently handed me the key that allowed me to awaken from the dream. And the irony is, the key was there all along, on the floor of my dungeon. But I could not see it, blinded as I was by my pain, my fear, and my anger. It was only when I quit struggling and collapsed in total exhausted surrender that I found it. And the key was this. Just a simple realization. However much all of my problems seemed to be the result of situations, circumstances, or people out there, this was a lie. The source was within myself. If I wanted to change my world, I would have to change myself. This realization was at once exciting and frightening. It was exciting in the fact that changing myself was one of those very few areas of life that I felt I had at least a little control over. I had noticed that I could barely manage the outer situations and circumstances in my life, much less change them. And even that took enormous energy. And forget about people. I had learned long before that I wasn't going to change any of them. So it was exciting to know that the only person that I really needed to change was me. And when I changed, like magic, my circumstances, situations, and even the people in my life seemed to change. Wow, this is pretty cool. It was a lot more fun and lighter than struggling to control, manipulate, and change other people, circumstances, and situations in my life, that's for sure. But I found there was also a downside. I had to make some sacrifices. For one, I had to totally give up my self-pity. I had not realized how much self-pity had become my treasured companion, and how much I loved theatrics. Oh, how I loved to play the noble martyr, the victim. How much I enjoyed telling folks how I had been wronged by others, especially at my job. And yes, they all agreed with me. They were my friends, right? We had this unspoken agreement that they would listen to my tales of woe and support me if I would listen to their tales of woe and support them. As long as we both never ever told each other what we were really thinking. After all, what are friends for? Anyway, as I was saying, there was a downside. I had to give up my self-pity, and I had to give up my righteous indignation of being wronged by others, or the experiences or circumstances of life. In short, I had to sacrifice the luxury of blame. This was hard. Judgment and blame was in my DNA. If something bad happens, it has to be someone's fault. There has to be someone to blame, even if it's myself. The key of assuming full personal responsibility for one's life isn't about transferring the judgment and blame of others to judging and blaming ourselves. It is about analyzing and understanding how our experience, beliefs, attitudes, decisions, and actions have conspired to create the situations and circumstances in our life, and how we can consciously change those within ourselves and create different outcomes, ones that are more in harmony of what we want in life. As long as we are focused on trying to change others or constantly reacting to their behavior, we are not free. We are still prisoners. As long as what another person says or does causes us to react, when they can push our buttons or pull our strings, then we are merely puppets, and they are the puppet master. This is the situation of 99.99999% of the people of the world, 99.9999% of the time. So we have plenty of company. But does it bring us the happiness we seek, or are we simply unconscious? We can choose to be the cause, as a creator who is in control of our own life, or we can be the effect and subject to all of the swirling situations, circumstances, and people around us. To see which we are, we only have to look at our decisions. Are they reactive or proactive? In fact, it was the biggest lie my ego had concocted to keep me imprisoned. When I woke up to this realization, it was like I had been asleep for eons, dreaming this nightmare from which I could not escape. Slowly, I began to realize the extent that this lie had totally dominated my life, how much I had really believed the nightmare was real life. So, if my challenges in life are not the result of situations, circumstances, or people out there, then what are they? I am of the school of thought, or perhaps I should say the deep-seated knowing, that our only purpose here on earth is first and foremost soul growth, or the expansion of consciousness that comes with the deepening awareness of our interconnectedness to all that is. Our primary venue for such growth is learning to live by design and not by default, stepping into our power of becoming conscious creators. This is the sum total of what it means to be created in the image of God, the ultimate creator. To this end, we have given ourselves a good dose of complete but temporary amnesia. We have created this elaborate theatre we call the third dimension, put on these costumes we call our bodies, and stepped into these characters we call our ego and personality. It is upon this stage that we have chosen to play out the dramas and learn the lessons implicit in the plots we have chosen. And it all proceeds in dead seriousness and with total amnesia. To use another metaphor, we are like the dogs at the racetrack. After the countdown, they are released to run lap after lap, around totally consumed with chasing a metal rabbit. Poor creatures. They think they are there to catch the rabbit. To this end, they devote their obsessive attention and expend their total energy. How different are we in our day-to-day lives than the greyhound dogs? We continue around the track lap after lap, chasing our metal rabbits of financial security, relationships, love, healing our childhood, seeking the acceptance of others, and 1,000 other illusions we believe are the source of happiness. Whether we are caught up in a nightmare, playing out the dramas of daily life, or running the racetrack chasing our metal rabbits, the ancients tell us that there is a way out. We can wake up from the nightmare. We can step off stage and see the drama for what it really is. We can stop dead in our obsessive thoughts and realize that all of the metal rabbits we are chasing are just that. Metal rabbits. In that moment, whenever and however it happens, everything changes. Our world becomes new. Possibilities that always existed but were never available suddenly appear. The magical world of synchronicity is ours. But here is the catch. Most of us never stop long enough to see through our self-created dramas or to press pause on our obsessive, endless loop thinking to find our way out. The adrenaline high of the drama is just too rich, the metal rabbits too alluring, the endless loop thinking groves too deep. We keep on doing what we have always done, and we keep on getting what we have always gotten, and we keep on wondering why this is happening to me again and again. It is not until the excruciating pain has brought us to our knees and total collapse that we begin to consider that perhaps there is another way. Another path that will bring us lasting happiness and true fulfillment, and not simply the bright flash and energy surges of the ego highs we have experienced in the past. No, it doesn't have to be this way, but this is the way it seems to be. With some pause and reflective thinking, this alternative is always available to us, but it seems to take the motivation of unbearable pain to push us over the edge. And even then, 99% of the people seem to be able to hang on to the edge with 1,000 ways to numb the pain. They are the walking dead. Are you suffering from PMT? The year was 995 AD, Western Europe, kingdoms and fiefdoms struggling to emerge from the Dark Ages. Anxiety was rampant, only 5 years to the end of the millennium. The second coming of Christ and the end of the world was imminent. Wandering prophets were prolific, adding a touch of thrill to a very dull day-to-day existence. Fast forward. The year was 1997. 3 years away from the end of the second millennium. The prophets of doom still abound, having reincarnated as newspaper reporters, publishers, and media moguls. Spiritual prophets are equally plentiful, but this is the age of equal access. We are offered not only the Christian option of rapture, but the equally exciting technological option of being beamed up by an ET mothership to escape the pending pole shifts, earth changes, and world wars. Since prophecy is in, I'll add my own 2 cents. A long time ago, I received a secret and special revelation that I have kept to myself until now. It may surprise and perhaps even disturb you. It's not the conventional wisdom in New Age circles. But this isn't the first time I've flirted with heresy. There won't be a pole shift your lifetime, no major earth changes, no mothership on the White House lawn, no rapture, no Armageddon. As we saw in the year 2001, it was business as usual. Surprised, disappointed, fearful of pending boredom? Sorry, that's the prophet's job, to call 'em like you see 'em. What many people were experiencing, suffering from, in the latter 90s was PMT, pre-millennium tension. It occurs at the end of each millennium in the Western Christian world. People get a little tense, a little crazy, start saying and doing things that they often look back on and regret in the year 1001 or 2001. Common sense takes a nap. Having said that, and hopefully stirred up some stuff, let me say this. We are in the midst of profound and accelerated planetary transformation, socially, politically, technologically, spiritually, and geologically. This change is accelerating. By all appearances, we are moving rapidly toward the recognition of our galactic citizenship. The keynote of galactic citizenship is responsibility, personal and collective. With PMT, there is a real temptation to blindly follow political, social, or spiritual movements or leaders which claim to have all the answers and which offer salvation in one form or another. If only we play follow the leader. From what I can see, this is about as old consciousness gets. It's also a dead end. If Millennium 3 is to truly be different than Millennium 2, we must move out of our personal and collective sense of victimhood, discover how we participate, consciously or unconsciously, in the creation of our individual and collective reality, and assume full responsibility as co-creators of our world. If a new era is to dawn, we must discover and learn to work with the divine presence, wisdom and power within ourselves as ones created in the image of God, and to qualify all we do with love, which is the divine will. Political, social and religious movements can't and won't save us from ourselves. Too often they are as much a part of the problem as the solution. Playing follow the leader was a Piscean age game that won't create the world we want in the age of Aquarius. This is a do-it-yourself age that is dawning, but the yourself is that divine aspect of self that is eternal, ever-present, ever-wise and ever-creative. It is love expressed as joy, the kingdom within. We are entering a new era, the era of possibility and responsibility. What it becomes is what we choose to become, consciously or unconsciously, individually and collectively. Becoming fully conscious and in resonance with the divine presence within is the only cure for fear and its offspring, PMT. 100 years from now, you and virtually everyone you know will be dead, period. That may happen very quickly, or it may be over a long period of time. So, what? Also, perhaps 1 million or 10 million years from now, the memory of our human species won't even exist on this planet. So what? The only important thing is the following questions, the morning questions. What makes me happy? What excites me today? What am I proud of in my life right now? What am I enjoying most in my life right now? What am I committed to now in my life? The evening questions. What did I learn today? What have I given today? In what way have I contributed today? How has today added to the quality of my life? Have I used today as an investment for my future? Fundamental questions. Why am I here? What is my life really about? Am I on the right track to fulfill my destiny? If I continue what I'm doing, where will I be 10 years from now? The ultimate guru. Seeking a wise teacher in the caves of the Himalayas or a wizened shaman in the Andes or Amazon is always an option. Certainly we have long held a strong attraction to the exotic other as a source of wisdom and enlightenment. However, in our ongoing quest for a deeper understanding of ourselves and our world, we have often failed to recognize the ultimate guru right at our doorstep. This master of all masters wears no robes. There are no sonorous chants in ancient languages, no hidden teachings to tantalize the seeker, no rituals, ceremony or hierarchy of believers, no special relationship with ascended beings, no occult techniques, formulas, prayers or meditations. The truth is, this master of all masters is the most unglamorous and mundane guru one could possibly imagine. So much so that she is always overlooked in our attraction to the exotic other. Who is this master of all masters, This ultimate guru? Relationships. Yes, just that. Simply relationships. Our magnificent world offers a wondrous array of the exotic other in terms of teachers. There are all kinds of gurus of various sorts and types. Each may have a teaching to offer at the various stages of our lives and journeys into consciousness. But when we have walked the many byways to enlightenment, ultimately the last path will bring us back to where we started. Relationships. When we hear the word relationships, our first thought is often romantic. But this is but a tiny fraction of the whole, like only the big toe of the guru. Consider all the relationships in your life. Your relationship with your body, your relationship with money, your relationship with the divine realm, your relationship with your own beliefs, your relationship with your own personal myth of who and what you are, your relationship with your home, your relationship with the earth. And then there are people, your relationship with your spouse, your children, your parents, siblings, friends, enemies, co-workers and strangers, and of course your romances. And there is that relationship with the intangible self, the who and what you truly are at the deepest core of your being. Indeed, what is your life and who are you but your relationships in the very broad sense of the term? And how is your relationship with each of these? Are you consciously working with them, or only learning indirectly and by default? Are you journeying to exotic inner and outer destinations and ignoring the ultimate guru at your doorstep? Are you ready to embrace her in all of her homely, mundane worldliness and make this a truly conscious adventure this time around? It is said that we teach what we most need to learn, and that to understand the issues in another's life, look at what they are teaching. I don't pretend to be a teacher, for truly I have no teachings, and as for beliefs, don't hold me to them next Tuesday. Something may occur this weekend that will give me a greater or deeper understanding of life, but a guide, yes. I have walked many of the paths I have alluded to. In the early 90s, with my own tour company, I was leading pilgrimages to the ancient sacred sites of Earth. Early in life, I embarked on the marriage and family path. In 1995, I moved to a secluded mountain sanctuary to explore the silent path of a solitaire, to pause and look at my many relationships in life. I've learned a few things along the way, and I have many yet to learn. But this one thing I know. I have learned, and continue to learn and grow, more from the relationships in my life than from all of the books in my library, all of the scriptures I have read, all of the religions I have studied, and all the guru lectures I have heard. While they have all been helpful, my greatest growth has come from that ultimate guru, from the experience of relationships, from the grinding together of ecstasy and agony, and from the intensity of the grinding. Where is the gift? In 1979, I was fired from my position as the executive director of neighborhood housing services in Nashville, Tennessee, as a result of a policy dispute with the board of directors. At the time, I was immersed in the idea that I was a martyred victim of a vocal minority who had swayed the board to take this action. I was hurt, angry, indignant, and fearful of the future, as well as stubborn and pig-headed. I had also been extremely unhappy with the job for over a year and didn't have the courage to quit. This move catapulted me into a whole new arena. In the midst of my searching for some form of independent income, I came upon one of the myriad multi-level marketing programs that I embraced enthusiastically. Well, I didn't get rich, at least not materially, but I tapped into something that has brought me more wealth than I could have imagined in 1980. Each week for months we would come together at the home of our sponsor for a pep talk. In retrospect, I see that it was a training class in the law of attraction prior to these ideas becoming popular in the spiritual community and the media. I learned that the universe operates in accord with our individual and collective beliefs and attitudes. I came to realize that I had incredible creative powers to determine my future within the framework of the collective belief system, and sometimes outside of it. I had heard some of these concepts before, but I had never integrated them into my life. The cornerstone of this system of reference was an understanding that, in every seeming adversity, there is the seed of an equal or greater benefit. That's right. I don't care how bad it is, if you will look close enough you will find the seed of an equal or greater benefit in the situation. Because it is a seed, it may take time to manifest, but it is there. Simply put, every challenge carries a gift. I am acutely aware of the suffering in the world, And I don't write about this lightly. When we are among the trees, it is hard to see the forest. However, it is only from a cosmic perspective, or often down the road a bit, that we can bring things into perspective and see the real benefit of a situation or circumstance in our individual lives or in the life of the world. It all begins with attitude. I once heard a 60-year-old motivational speaker open his talk by saying that nothing bad had happened to him since he was 40 years old. That certainly got my attention. He did admit that a number of unpleasant things had occurred, and each time he said to himself, "That's good, where's the gift?" And then he went about finding the good and the gift in it. He said he was invariably successful. Pollyanna-ish, some would say so. To counter, he would say plain and simple that it works. This has been my experience as well. It works. The universe supports our every belief and attitude. If we want to feel we are victims, we have that freedom, and people will constantly abuse us. We also have the freedom to reframe each of our experiences and see how they have helped us to stretch and grow in wisdom and maturity. It's our choice. There is an advanced philosophy that states that circumstances are essentially neutral. It is our beliefs and attitude that give them meaning, and it is the meaning we give them which causes our emotional or physical reaction. A simple example is food. Certain insects and snails are considered a delicacy by some and would cause mouth-watering. Others would retch at even the idea of eating these. The Creator has given us a beautiful playground called planet Earth. We have been given the ability to co-create with our lives and our world. Are your current beliefs and attitudes increasing your joy and happiness, your prosperity and love, or are they causing you pain? God in drag. It is said, and it has been my own experience, that it isn't what happens in life or our circumstances that defines our reality, but rather our perspective, the way we look at it. All of the foregoing guidance refers to this in one way or another. Here is another way of looking at it, a different way of looking at your world, a different way of viewing your daily drama. Perhaps there are those in your life with whom you have had issues, family members, business partners, old loves, employees, employers or friends who have betrayed you. Who are they? Who are they? They are God in drag. Your challenges in life and the challenging people in your life can help you come to understand yourself and the true nature of reality. Some of us learn quickly, and some of us learn very, very slowly. And when we are a very slow learner, what happens? We have to continually repeat the lesson until we master the subject. It is the same drama, different actors. But who are those actors in our drama? The good guys, the bad guys, and the irrelevant. Guess who? God in drag. Divine Presence has an immense wardrobe of wigs and dresses and can come to you in ways that you cannot imagine. It can make you laugh. It can make you cry. It can bring up every emotion that you know and some that you haven't met yet. All of this is for the purpose of helping you to remember who you are, who you really are. It has 1,000 ways of dressing up and coming to you to awaken from the dream drama and into reality, into the template of oneness. You can abandon your friends and family and go to foreign lands in your search of God. You can go to India or Tibet. You can go to the ancient sacred sites of Mexico, Egypt, Peru, or England. You can go to the great gurus, the great teachers. There is nothing wrong with this. But it is that business partner that cheats you. It is that lover that does not live up to your expectations. It is that overbearing parent, that thankless child. It is in all of these that Divine Presence comes to you day by day to awaken you to who you really are. For indeed God comes to you in drag through every person, and in every experience and every moment you are given the choice for your heart to expand and incorporate each experience, expand and incorporate each person in your life from the macrocosmic perspective, or to contract and reject. It is the energy of love, or it is the energy of fear. It is always a choice between love and fear. It is only when you move from the tiny corner of your consciousness that is locked into the template of duality that is so deeply involved in the drama. It is only when you move out of that into an understanding of your higher self. It is only then that you can truly open your heart to love. Now you are sometimes told that fear is something bad. If it was something bad, it would not have been created as a part of your life package. Fear is good. It is good that you are fearful of burning your hand if you stick it into a fire. It is good that you know that there are certain things that are unwise to do, because you will no longer exist in the physical if you do them. It is good that you are fearful to run a red light in rush hour traffic. Fear can be, and is, a good thing for your physical preservation. It does have its purposes, but when you let it run rampant and dominate your entire existence, the results are what you see in the present, what you see dominating your world today. Fear was meant to be an instrument for preserving the physical vehicle, not a tool of the ego. Now let me share a secret with you. You have been told that there was a time in the dark past of your creation that you were cast out of the Garden of Eden for having disobeyed God. You were told that this God was like an angry father who punished his children harshly when they disobeyed. You were taught that sometimes he even hated, was jealous, furiously angry, and even required blood sacrifices. In fact, he had every human emotion. This God that you learned of was a human creation. This is the God of your nightmare. This is the God of your own construct, constructed in your nightmare. This is not the creator of the universe. The creator of the universe, the source of all that is so far beyond your limited imagination and conception that in the shadow of such a presence, you are utterly speechless. Divine presence is not the collection of human emotions and attributes, and to claim such is nothing short of idolatry. You were never cast out of the Garden of Eden. You only fell asleep and have been having this terrible nightmare of this tyrannical God. When you awaken, truly awaken from this nightmare, you will find that you are still living in the Garden of Eden. When you awaken from your nightmare, your life becomes so beautiful, so filled with joy, so blessed that it is beyond words. As you entered this dimension, you went straight into amnesia as to who you really are and why you are here. Soon after you were born, you fell asleep, as it were, and began to dream this collective and fear-filled nightmare. And it brought such deep sadness, such deep pain. But that time is over. It is time to wake up, to remember who you are, remembering why you are here and remembering what this is all about. But how do you do this? Visualize a column of light before you, and offer into this column of light those parts of yourself that you wish to release. Perhaps those alienated parts of yourself that have not been brought into the light. Release into this column those parts of yourself that you might call your shadows, those parts of yourself that you hide from others, and perhaps even from yourself. Release these into the light and allow the transmutation and transformation to take place in this moment. Once acknowledged, allow them to be dissolved in the light of divine presence and replaced by love, simply love. First and foremost, love for self and love for divine presence, by whatever name you give it. There is no condemnation, there is no judgment, there is only a deeper awareness, a deeper understanding, and a deeper awakening. As you touch into this, allow your heart to open more and more to those parts of yourself that need embracing, those wounded parts of yourself, those alienated parts of yourself. Allow this love to enfold, to heal, to nurture, and to awaken you to your true nature, which is far beyond the challenges of your daily dramas. Perhaps you have found yourself at times being like a ping-pong ball with your consciousness bouncing from the microcosm to the macrocosm, from the dream drama of the go to the full understanding of the higher self, and seeing the world from that aspect of divine presence that you are. As you spend more and more time seeing things from the big picture, from the larger understanding, you may still catch yourself from time to time falling back into the drama, talking about others, caught up in the negativity and the fear. But this time you will be aware of it, whereas in the past you would have been unconscious of it. So you are on a journey from the microcosmic perspective to the macrocosmic perspective. You are on the journey from being a victim of your circumstances to being the conscious creator of all that is within your life. There is so much beauty, there is so much grace, there is so much abundance that awaits you. It is as if you will fly on a magic carpet to worlds that you never dreamed of. To better understand the microcosm versus the macrocosm, let me give you an illustration. Imagine a triangle inverted with a point down, and about 10% of that triangle sticking below the surface of the ocean, the other 90% sticking above the ocean. That 10% that sticks below the surface of this body of water is your personality, ego self. That part that you are locked into most of the time, the dream drama part. That is the part that struggles with relationships. That is the part struggles with finances. That is the part that struggles with all of the drama. That 90% of who you really are, that which is connected to everyone and everything, is the higher self. When you allow the guidance of that 90% of who you are to dominate your life, everything will change. All limitations and all obstacles will begin to dissolve. The question is, can your ego surrender control? Can it allow you to step out of your petty dramas? We are always looking outside of ourselves for answers, and certainly there is insight to found from many sources, books, teachers, religions, etc. However, whatever the religion, however beautiful the person, however great the teachings, however dynamic the spiritual movement, the most authentic guidance is ultimately to be found within yourself. The bottom line is love. Can you remember a time when you held a child in your arms, or perhaps a puppy or kitten, holding that fragile, innocent life in your arms and allowing your heart to open completely as your love flowed to that small one? So now, experience that again. Not only the love flowing from your heart, but allow the love from divine source to pour into the top of your head and flow through your heart. Direct that love, like a beam of light from your heart center, to those people and situations in your life that need love. It will not be the words, the teachings, the books you read, or all the good deeds that are done in the world that will bring about a transformation and awakening, but it will be who you are. It will be your love. As your love embraces your own fears, it will transform the monsters that have haunted your life into the cherubs that fly about you in joy. As you allow that love to enfold and transform these shadows, so you will become a purer, finer instrument of divine presence. The Keys to Eden. A channeled message from Source. What I say to you is of no consequence whatsoever. What you experience within yourself as love is the only thing that matters. So I call you out of that place of your mind. I call you out of that place of your ego. I call you out of that place of your personality. I call you out of that 1% of yourself, and I call you into your heart. I call you into the experiential part of yourself, your higher self, in order to experience that part of me that is manifested in and through that 99% of who and what you are. And as you step sideways, just ever so slightly, into that 99% of who you are, you will find you have no challenges. You will find you have no problems. You will find the love that you have been seeking outside of yourself. You will find it in me. And where am I but within you, as you? For I am the love that you are. How many times will you need to trip and fall face first into the mud before you will cease journeying to the four corners of the world looking for that which is within you? If you could see with the clear vision and complete perception, at all levels and in all dimensions, you would see how even now you are so totally enfolded in wings of love, in wings of grace, in wings of beauty, and in wings of joy. And as I speak to you of this, it is not to deny the fact that the 1% of who you are is experiencing anger or some other ego-based emotion. Let me give you a picture. Imagine you are the parent, a parent with a 2-year-old. You may remember that this is a particularly obstinate age of, I will do it my own self. Okay, you have the picture. As a parent, you want to enfold the little one and protect the little one from the little hurts. But the little one has to do it his own self, and so, being the grand and benevolent parent that you are, you allow him the experience, knowing where it will lead. And when she runs up against the pain and turns around to run into your arms are open and the band-aids are ready, and you are ready to kiss the ow ow. I am that part of you that is of the all that is. And when you are ready to surrender the insistence upon doing it your own self, whether it is your financial life, your relationships, your health, or any other aspect of your life, when you are ready to totally and completely surrender, my arms are open, and I will enfold you in a love that is beyond your wildest imagination. I am that 99% of your reality. You will never ever be able to experience a love or a joy greater than that which I am. You will not find it in a religion, you will not find it in a spiritual path, and you will not find it in a guru or a teacher. You will not find it in a lover. Each of them, as they touch different parts of your life and your need for love, each of them are but a very dim reflection of my love. They are no more than a small birthday candle compared to the blazing sun of my love and my presence. How much pain and frustration do you choose to experience before you surrender totally to my love? My arms are wide open. In me there is no condemnation, there is no judgment, There is only love without conditions, for that is who and what I am. The irony of it all is that when you come to this place of utter, total, and complete surrender to my love, your experience will not be limited to some kind of celestial, spiritual, or etheric love. My love is manifested through every aspect in your life, through every person, every situation, circumstance, and experience. When you surrender to my love, then my love begins to radiate from you, and like a magnet draws love in all forms to you. As you become the presence of love in the world, others will be competing to be with you. There will be many warm arms and warm hearts wanting to hold you. Do you understand what I am saying to you? You have said, I want this person. I want that person. I want this job, this circumstance in my life. And there is nothing wrong with that. You can spend your life perusing that. It is good to have intention for. You are here to learn to be a master of the material world. And part of your mastership is the experimentation of what works and what doesn't work. Let me give you another picture. You are the 3-year-old, and you are standing on the bank of a swiftly flowing creek. Now maybe the water only comes up to your ankles, but you can't quite see the bottom. And there are big rocks and there are small rocks, and it is a bit treacherous. Now you can be the I will do it my own self and start across the creek, and there will be times when you will slip and fall, perhaps, and bruise yourself. And each time you do, each time you experience this pain, of course, you will learn something from it. We are not saying to stay safely in the arms of your parent. We are saying to cross the creek, but don't be obstinate. Take the hand of your parent. Allow your loving mother to hold your hand and guide you across the creek. You were not meant to do it alone, except as you choose to do it alone. Do you understand the pain that I feel as you feel pain? Because of the way you have been taught, you see divine presence as something as far above and remote from you, perhaps not even concerned, but if concerned, still out of reach. I am saying to you that the pain you feel, I feel because we are one. The difference is, you are attached to the pain, and I am not attached to the pain. With you the pain lingers, with your 1% expression. Through the ego and the personality, the pain is stuck. But in that part of you that I am, that 99% of who you are, the pain moves through and registers, and we are connected. And my love reaches out and enfolds that other aspect of myself that you are, even more. When you reach the point in any aspect of your life, financial, romantic, health, whatever, and say, I am at my wit's end, I don't know where to go. When you become as a little child and truly let go and surrender to that part of yourself that I am, at that moment you open the door for me to step through and into your life, expressing myself as that 99% of who you really are. In that moment, magic happens and miracles occur. At that moment, all things converge for the highest good, both for yourself and all others. How often, when you have desired something so much, whether it be another person, a material thing, a special kind of connection with someone, how often have you truly, at the very core of your being, wanted what was best for that person? You see, this is the test of whether you are operating from the 1% or the 99% reality of I am that you are. That 1% of you wants to fulfill its ego desires and attachments, whereas the 99% of who you really are understands the oneness of all and seeks only the highest good. And there again is the irony. The ego fights and struggles to have its way, and in the process experiences a great deal of pain. And all the while, if you had simply shifted into the higher self of your true nature, you would begin to see magic and miracles unfold. This is the key to Eden. For what is Eden in your mind, except paradise? And what is paradise in your mind, except the state of being in love, totally cared for, totally enfolded, totally provided for? And the doorway is simply surrendering the ego's will to the highest good. And again, I say to you that the creation, the specification, and the definition of your intentions and desires are good. But when this is done, bless them and turn them over to your higher self for the manifestation. Release your attachment to the outcome. And remember this, there is nothing wrong with the 1% of who you are. This is a part of your reality. This is also divine presence interpenetrating into the third dimension as an individual energy in a state of amnesia. And it is good. This 1% allows you to touch, feel, and fully experience this 3D hologram. This 1% that comprises the ego and personality is like the colored glasses you wear at a 3D movie. It allows you to fully experience the illusion. So, there is nothing wrong with this unless you forgot that it is just a movie. So create your intent, create your desire, and then give them to me on a golden platter. For I am the one that will bring them forth in your life. Do you understand that the created part is that part of you that separates, defines, articulates and creates intent? This is a part of myself functioning in the creation process. That 1%, once it is done, has completed its job. It is not the job of that 1% to manifest that which has been divinely intended. Do you understand? It is then brought back, surrendered, turned over, presented, if you will, on a golden platter. And I then will bring forth the highest good. So this is your key. This is your key to Eden. Call to mind a moment of time in your life when you felt most loved. It might have been by a parent. It might have been enfolded in the arms of a lover. In that moment, call to mind the ecstasy, the total sense of warmth, security and protection that this experience brought to you. It might have been in the warm, strong arms of your grandmother or grandfather. Whatever it was, bring that into your mind and into your heart now, and know that the love and security that you felt at that time is but a dim reflection of the reality of the love that I am in your life. For in my eyes you are innocent, and my love is without condition. Now I would invite you to shift your reference point from that of looking outside of yourself for answers and guidance to looking inside. Listen to the whisperings of your own heart, the still small voice within. Here I am. Here I reside. This has always and will ever be my one true dwelling place. I am that I am. Kissing frogs. It's true, you know. We are reptilian. At the center of our three-part brain lies that original brain core scientists call reptilian. It is that instinctual part which worries mostly about food, shelter, sex and security, that looks out for number one. Great wisdom is coded in our ancient fairy tales. One such story that appears in many forms in various cultures is the frog-turned prince with a kiss. The familiar scene opens with the handsome prince living under a cruel spell that has turned him into a frog. The spell can only be broken by the kiss of a princess who can see beyond the outer form to what lies within. Our lives are full of frogs. At home, at work, in our social lives there are those we find loathsome. Perhaps we even find a frog staring back at us when we look in the mirror. Personally, socially, culturally, we live under the wicked spell of profound pain, born of fear. Strip away the fear, strip away the layers of pain with a kiss, and we will find a prince or princess. Criticize, judge, condemn, and we add layer upon layer of pain and fear, and push the hidden prince deeper and deeper into his frog costume. Each of us possess the magic wand of personal and planetary transformation. It isn't more workshops, seminars, classes, or gurus. It isn't the perfect religion or political system. It isn't great esoteric wisdom or magical skills. It is simply love. It is the ability to see into and through the frog-like fear and pain of another person, group of people, or even ourself, into the essence of their princely nature, and to touch that nature with the magic of love, to see as God sees. Political tyranny, terrorism, war, crime, and the great cruelties of our age are born of the same energy we experience in personal relationships gone sour. Fear and pain. We live in a holographic universe. When we judge and condemn, born of our own fear and pain, we add to the sum total in the universe at all levels. When we choose to love, to see and seek to elicit the princely nature in another, and act accordingly, we wield a powerful tool for transformation. Many years ago, I was in Jerusalem 3 days after the mosque massacre at Hebron. At one point in occupied East Jerusalem, we came to an intersection with 3 trucks of Israeli soldiers, young conscripts with machine guns drawn. Scattered clusters of young Palestinians stood at a distance. Gunfire echoed down the street. The fear and pain that emanated from these young men, on both sides, was profound. My heart went out to the young Palestinians in their fear and pain of humiliation, of living under foreign occupation. My heart went out to the young Jewish soldiers who were forced into the army and given a machine gun at age 18. It would be easy to blame their leaders and the politicians. but my heart went out to them as well. I saw the fear and pain of Palestinian leaders who have felt that they had to turn to terrorism and killing innocent people out of the frustration and pain of 45 years of being refugees and being ignored by the international community. The pain and humiliation of being forced out of their homes at gunpoint and seeing their children shot down in the streets by foreign troops. I saw the fear and pain of the Israeli leaders, born out of the Holocaust, whose deepest fear is that of annihilation and whose deepest desire is for security to live in peace and prosperity, to return to their ancient homeland, rebuild their nation, and to be strong as a people once again. I saw the blindness on both sides in the belief that the only way one could win is for the other to lose, that guns could bring peace, that God favored one people above another, that true peace could be obtained by anything less than love. In relationships, whether personal, social, international, or interdimensional, there are no good guys and bad guys. That is an illusion of the ego. There are only good guys, some of whom have discovered their princely nature, and some of whom are locked deep in the dungeon of their own fear and pain, believing themselves to be frogs and convincing others of the same. We carry the key in our hearts to open the dungeon door, to transform the energy on the planet with thoughts and actions of love. One thought or act of love today toward one of the frogs in our lives will bring us closer to individual and collective ascension than all the rites, rituals, or esoteric practices of all the world's religions and cults. And what is love but wishing their very best and highest good for another, seeing the best in them and helping them to see it in themselves? Failure or graduation? Divorce is commonly referred to as a failed marriage. I beg to disagree. It is all a matter of perspective. If the belief was the fairy tale notion at marriage that the couple would be living happily ever after, well, that's a nice fantasy. But experience at ground zero has repeatedly proven that such is not normally the case. Yes, many couples do stay together forever, but it is often for economic reasons, for the sake of the children, because of societal or family expectations, or simply for a fear of change, and not because they are living happily ever after. When one completed high school or college, or even left home as a young adult, it wasn't considered a failure, but a graduation, or the next step on life's journey. Why can't we view a divorce in the same way? Nothing is permanent, including relationships. Relationships, like individuals, like our bodies, change over time. When we try to hold on to what was, some idealist time in the past, we suffer. When we learn to flow graciously with the changes in our lives, whether they be our circumstances, our bodies, or our relationships, then life becomes easier. When we can acknowledge the gifts we experience in each moment of time without clinging to them, life becomes easier. This is especially true with relationships. Your childhood friends were just that, childhood friends. Regardless of how close you were, those friendships may not have endured into your adulthood. The infatuation you experienced 10, 20, or 30 years ago has most likely faded, whether or not it led to marriage. You may even look back and wonder, what was I thinking? Or perhaps that infatuation led to a long and lasting love in old age, one built on respect and appreciation, rather than passion. In any case, it changed, and over the course of time, if the connection endured, you both learned a great deal. Relationships are one of the primary pieces of curriculum we undertake in each lifetime, whether they be friends, family members, or lovers and spouses. There is no failure. There are only learning opportunities. And of course, some of these are painful, and often do not end up where they started. When you have learned all you can from a relationship, when the two of you have grown in different directions or grown apart, or when it becomes too painful to endure, acknowledge the reality. Be grateful for what you have learned and how you have grown. Don't try to hold on to what was. Accept the reality of what is. Move beyond regret, anger, sadness, or guilt to gratitude. Gratitude for all that you have learned from the relationship. Gratitude for all of the challenges that have forced you to grow. Gratitude for the good times, and yes, there were some. And if and when the relationship ends, whether dramatically or simply dissolves gradually, don't see it as a failure. See it as graduation, a completion of a course of study. Look to the future as a new beginning. Celebrate the new era you are entering and perhaps the opportunity to reinvent yourself. When you have completed school, there is a commencement ceremony. Commence means to begin. Marriages begin with often elaborate ceremonies and celebrations for a new beginning. Why can't they be concluded with the same sense of celebration of completion and new beginnings, rather than clinging to the concept of failure? It is really a matter of perspective. Two great myths. Failure and sin are two concepts solely based on our belief about the nature of reality. Like most of us, I grew up believing in both. The goal in life was perfection, whatever that meant to each individual at any given time. Both failure and sin meant something less than perfection. Let's look at each. Sin is a Greek word spelled amartia. It's an archery term for when someone didn't hit the target or put more, simply missed the mark. When translated into English, the word is sin. You missed the mark, i.e., a failure. This, of course, is based on the idea that your primary purpose was to hit the target, not to simply learn to become a good archer. Do you see the difference? In my world, there is no failure and no sin. Why? Because I understand that my purpose on earth, from lifetime to lifetime, is not perfection, but simply soul growth. Yes, I have goals that I have yet to accomplish, and yes, I have a few regrets of foolish actions in the past, but all of these have been valuable curriculum for my soul growth. Relationships. The biggest challenge that most of us face in life and our prime curriculum is relationships. When we say relationships, we normally think of other people. But look deeper. You have a relationship with your home, your car, your cell phone and computer, and scores of other aspects of life, including your body. And then, of course, there is your family, friends, co-workers, etc. If you think about it, your life is all about your relationships. This is the reason that relationships are usually your most challenging curriculum. But let's just look at the people in your life and the challenges you have with some of them. Why is this? Why so much hurt, anger, sadness, and disappointment? I dare say it is because of your expectations, your attachment to their being different than they really are. Our attachments and expectations, not their behavior, are the source of all our suffering. When you simply accept the fact that this is the way they are, like it or not, then your suffering stops. The easiest way to do this is to accept that their journey is not the same as yours. They have a different course of study in this lifetime. Let us consider this example. You are in the university and majoring in algebra. Your friend or family member is majoring in music. You have different courses of study. You are on different educational journeys. Neither is good or bad, just different. They may even seem to not be studying at all, but spending all of their time partying. But that is also their curriculum. It is when you expect them to be on the same journey you are on, or having the same curriculum, then you suffer from your unmet expectations. When you accept that their curriculum in this life is different than yours, you are at peace. Of course, when you see that their studies are the source of much of their suffering, it is challenging to let go of trying to change them. But you aren't likely to do anything but cause conflict and more suffering for both of you. All you can do is to serve as an example with your own happiness. But that is the challenge. What is your relationship with yourself? What do you see and say to yourself when you look in the mirror? Are you happy with yourself? Often we are more critical and judgmental of self than we are of others. Can you identify and look closely at the curriculum you have chosen for this lifetime? Are you experiencing the same challenges, dramas, over and over again with different actors? This is your curriculum. Perhaps you haven't graduated yet, but can you see progress? You really aren't responsible for others in your life, whether or not they meet your expectations. You are only responsible for yourself, and if you have noticed, that is a full-time job. Can you replace the self-judgment and self-criticism with a healthy dose of humor? Most of us suffer from a case of seriosity. Looking in the mirror and having a good belly laugh at your humanness is very healing. Learning to love those parts of yourself that you once condemned is the exit out of dark tunnel of suffering. And surprise, surprise, once you learn to really love self, all parts of self, you will find that your judgment of others also dissolves, for all judgment of others is ultimately a reflection of your own self-judgment. Learn to accept and even appreciate the journey that others are on, and the curriculum they have chosen, and your life and your relationships will become much happier. What is jealousy? We can't really talk about relationships without saying a word about jealousy. Jealousy in relationships has only two sources: insecurity and ownership. If he is interested in him, her, then there must be something wrong with me. That is simply not true. You can in fact love more than one person at a time, as any parent can attest to. Yes, it may be slightly different with each one, but nonetheless authentic. You can love all of your children and all of your friends. To love one does not mean that you don't love the others. To love one does not mean there is something wrong with the others. The exclusivity notion of love is a false fairy tale belief. It may be practical for a family raising children, but it isn't realistic, as human nature shows again and again. Because your special other also loves someone else does not mean that there is necessarily something wrong with you. It is your insecurity speaking. The other source of jealousy is based on the idea of ownership. This is a carryover from the old days when the belief prevailed that the woman was a man's possession, or vice versa. This isn't love, this is a matter of ownership, and the jealousy, i.e. anger, is based on the idea of theft. You stole something that belonged to me. If you have the self-confidence of knowing that you are a catch, and if you have discarded the antiquated idea of ownership in relationships, then jealousy will be history. It is ultimately all a matter of perspective. If your special other leaves, you may think, what am I going to do now that she is gone? Or you might think, free at last, thank God Almighty, I'm free at least. It is all a matter of perspective. I didn't say it would be easy, but it is something to consider. 10 Rules for Being Human, author unknown. 1. You will receive a body. You may love it or hate it, but it will be yours for the duration of your life on earth. 2. You will be presented with lessons. You are enrolled in a full-time informal school called Life. Each day in this school you will have the opportunity to learn lessons. You may like the lessons or hate them, but you have designed them as part of your curriculum. 3. There are no mistakes, only lessons. Growth is a process of experimentation, a series of trials, errors, and occasional victories. The failed experiments are as much a part of the process as the experiments that work. 4. Lessons are repeated until learned lessons will repeated to you in various forms until you have learned them. When you have learned them, you can then go on to the next lesson. 5. Learning does not end. There is no part of life that does not contain lessons. If you are alive, there are lessons to be learned. 6. There is not better than here. When your there has become a here, you will simply obtain another there that will look better to you than your present here. 7. Others are only mirrors of you. You cannot love or hate something about another person unless it reflects something you love or hate about yourself. 8. What you make of your life is up to you. You have all the tools and resources you need. What you do with them is up to you. 9. All the answers lie inside of you. All you need to do is look, listen, and trust. 10. You will forget all of this at birth. You can remember it if you want by unraveling the double helix of inner knowing. If you have questions or wish more information, you can contact Michael Lightweaver at lightweaveaal.com or visit his website at michaellightweaver.com.